Locals say they've spotted missing teen Jay Slater celebrating whilst watching the Euros.
Hospital hell. A 5-day strike commences today by junior doctors in England over pay.
The Crown's cash. The annual report, which declares the wealth of the monarch, is to be released today.
Should pensions be taking a tax hit? We'll be debating that just after 7.
And in the sport this morning, Gareth Southgate says that any fan anger is on him, which is fair, and it's confirmed that England's last 16 game will be against Slovakia on Sunday at 5 o'clock in Gelsenkirchen. Also at the Euros, Portugal and Belgium are booed, so it's not just us after all. And in cricket, England are in the semi-final of the T20 World Cup, playing against India and the rain.
Wet and unusually windy for the time of year across Scotland and Northern Ireland today. Further south, well, many places will see some sunshine, but we are saying goodbye to the hot weather across East Anglia and the southeast. Join me later for a full forecast.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, a very good morning to you. It's nice to have you with us today. Our first day on the lovely new set.
Yes, I love it. Do you love it?
I do love it.
Feels very spacious. Feels very far away. But it's nice.
That's good, that's good.
Yeah.
Now I know everyone's been bleating on about the Tric Awards yesterday, mainly. I have got one right. Suddenly, the one we won yesterday...
Has got walkabouts.
Someone's pinched it.
Yeah.
This is the one we won last year.
This is the original.
This is the original, so very nice too. So I just planned that. But actually, for us, as lovely as the Trics were, and we had a lovely time, didn't we? It was very lovely.
Did. It was
Thank
lovely.
you for all your votes.
Yes, thank you so much.
There we are. I couldn't get onto that stage fast enough, as you can tell. But actually, we had a very special day, didn't we?
It was.
With something
a
else.
very special touch, wasn't it, in the morning?
Yes, because we decided, well, Ellie decided,
of course,
to meet up for a drink before we went down the green carpet together. And for me, you know, it'd be, do I go for a Starbucks or a McDonald's coffee or something? But no, this one's a little bit fancier.
Well, I like to think I'm fancier. So where do we end up? Claridge's.
Claridge's.
And who else was there?
Well, the Japanese ambassador was... emperor was staying.
The Japanese emperor was there. So when we arrived, there were loads of Japanese tourists, weren't there? There was security, there was police officers. We were just sat there having our coffees, thinking, this is all very fun.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Didn't know they were expecting us. So we thought, when it was time to leave, we thought, well, should we wait for 5 minutes?
Wait for the Emperor?
Just to see if the Emperor comes down the stairs, because all his security were sort of gathered around the bottom of the stairs. So we just thought we'd wait and see what happened. And a car turned up, and we thought, well, that must be ready to take him off. And then who should walk in? Prince William. So there he was.
Oh, there we are.
There's me. I'm looking very
You look like a proud father.
I felt so... Do you know what? I felt so proud, actually.
Aww.
I felt really proud to see him stood there. And actually, we were closer than it looks on the camera. There, we're literally about 5 feet away.
Yeah, you could hear the conversation, couldn't you?
Oh, yes.
And you said you were very impressed with his conversational abilities.
It's the soft diplomacy, they call it. And the guy he was talking to, we think, was the Japanese ambassador.
I was furiously Googling, wasn't I, who these people were.
And some fella who was stood next to us, who was Japanese and knew his stuff, was busy telling us that it was the emissary, so I presume he meant ambassador by that. But the way William was... And they were talking for a good 5 minutes, but interestingly, William was sort of saying, I'm going to talk to the Emperor about this and that and the other. And some of it was light-hearted and fun, and some of it was serious, and about the earthquake that was there recently and all this sort of thing. And he was clearly very well briefed.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
He clearly knew what he was talking about. He had calm and confidence with him. I was so impressed.
Yeah. And humour as well. He was joking about the weather. He's saying, well, clearly you've brought the lovely weather with you. And it was lovely. Really nice. He carried himself very well.
Yeah. It's the closest I've ever been to him.
You were starstruck, I think.
I was really starstruck. I was just so impressed, and I just have so much respect for him. And I was just what he did there, and to consider him, he's younger than me, and you just sort of think, wow, that's a lot that he's taking on, and just doing these sort of things. really impressive. It made my day.
It made
more
mine
than
as
anything
well.
else.
And I think our country is in safe hands with him being the heir to our throne. He was just wonderful, wasn't he? And it didn't end there, because then we walked to the Tric Awards, didn't we?
Yes.
And the convoy came past.
Yes.
With the with the Emperor, the Empress, and the Prince of Wales.
And then the Prince of
William came
Wales
past
with
as well.
his what do you call the military that's always I can't remember the name. But anyway, he's a guy called the guy I said who was all dressed up to the nines.
Yeah.
He's a guy called Rob Dixon.
Any relation?
No relation,
No.
sadly. But he was looking at me. Now, whether he knows
Maybe
me,
you are a relation.
Maybe he knows me from the telly, or he may, because obviously I'm married into the military, so maybe he knew something about that. I don't know. But he was equerry. That's the one I'm looking for. Thank you. So he was giving me the eye. So yeah, he knew me from somewhere. So that was quite interesting.
That's a side story.
That's a side story. Yeah. That was. So that was interesting.
He liked what he saw.
That might be my in to the Royals.
Well, maybe.
You
With
see.
Rob Dixon.
With Rob Dixon.
Anyway, so
Oh,
it was a
we've
lovely day on Tuesday, was it?
Yeah, we've waffled on for ages.
Sorry, but we wanted to tell you that story, and it was wonderful. It was a day we'll never forget, for lots of reasons.
Yes.
But thank you for voting and for making it so special for us, because it means the world, doesn't it?
It does. Of course it does.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
really nice. Now, we better crack on with politics because
Just tell you a story.
Yeah. Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer clashed over illegal immigration in last night's final TV debate, just a week before voters decide who's going to form the next government.
Yes, a new poll has now predicted that the Conservatives are set to lose most of their seats, with fewer seats than the Liberal Democrats, meaning that they would become the official opposition.
It also found Reform UK, which actually would beat the Tories in terms of the sort of percentage of the vote, could win about 18 seats, which, is a lot more than the polls have predicted so far.
Well, with all of that in mind, let's take a look back at what the politicians have got up to in the past 24 hours.
Work is, of course, about pay and being able to pay your own way and, support your family. But it is also about dignity and respect. And my dad worked in a factory all his life. He was a tool maker. And having a secure job for him was really important to his respect and integrity.
Well, do you know where these people come from?
No, he's not answering the question.
Do you know where
You
they
can
come
see
from?
that.
Iran,
You can see.
Syria, Afghanistan. So when Keir Starmer says he's going to return people, is he going to sit down? Are you going to sit down with the Iranian ayatollahs? Are you going to try and do a deal with the Taliban? It's completely nonsensical what you are saying.
I really think we need to review the whole of gambling regulation with respect to politics. And I really hope after the election, that's what the new government and Parliament gets behind.
In your lifetime, do you want to see Britain back in the EU?
Listen, because you've got a lot of work to do to even be able to contemplate something like that, I wouldn't...
You wouldn't even go that far.
Let's talk to the deputy editor for Spiked Online, Fraser Myers. Good to see you, Fraser.
Good morning.
Morning.
Look, what did you make of last night? There's the sort of immediate YouGov poll that came out afterwards put them on 50-50 in terms of their performance last night. The Prime Minister was definitely on the attack, but he also seemed like a man with not much to lose.
Yeah, I think often in these sort of head-to-heads, I would say Sunak has done better overall than Starmer. He actually performs well in these kinds of environments because he can actually put Starmer on the back foot a little bit and say, well, what are your plans for X, Y, Z? And Keir is very famously quite slippery. So, seen some clips there of him not quite able to say how he would deal with illegal migration, not able to say which taxes he would put up. And actually, that's been one of the key messages of the Tory campaign, hammering Labour on, where are the tax rises. I think he did actually pin Starmer down to pretty much admit that there will be a tax on the state pension. Now, this is a result of the Conservatives setting a trap in the last budget.
Well, I say
it's their own policy.
Doing.
It's their own policy that they've then reversed in the middle of the election campaign. But then Starmer said, our position is the same as the government, i.e. from the next budget, which is basically an admission that there will be a tax on the state pension. That's the first time he's ever given way on any of these things subtly. But, of course, we're 1 week out from the general election. Will this head-to-head make any difference at all? It seems a bit unlikely. I mean, Sunak was 20 points down when he called the election, and every week, you ask, can things get any better? Can they get worse? They've only got worse. We've had this election, the last 2 weeks, been dominated by the betting scandal, for instance. Yes. Again, so everything, you know, he couldn't afford to put a foot wrong, and everything has gone wrong. So I doubt that this performance, where, as you say, I thought Sunak did a better job, but if the public thinks it's only 50-50, that's not going to pull things back.
But do you think it will pull things back in terms of undecided voters? Because there will be those that go into the polling station next week and they have their pen in their hand, pencil in their hand, and they hover and they make the decision in the box right there. Will last night have made a difference to those people?
Well, let's see. I mean, that is the great factor in this election, actually. You know, we're looking at a Labour victory, not because people have suddenly flocking to the Labour Party, not because there's any great enthusiasm out there for Keir Starmer or his programme, but because people have gone off the Tories. And many of those people are undecided. Many of them may not vote at all. Many of them going to reform. But again, as you say, there are a lot of votes to play for, even at this late stage where a lot of people may have voted already with their postal vote. So, and, you know, the polls, for instance, which I'm sure we're going to come on to talk about, have been pretty wild in terms of the differences that they're showing in terms of the level of support. I
mean, the problem is, and we showed a clip of the Prime Minister having a go over immigration policy. The problem is it's all totally disingenuous, isn't it? I mean, to say, well, you know, what are you going to do with people from Afghanistan, from Syria, from, you know, and are you going to negotiate with these people? As if the Prime Minister has a plan. Yeah. Because Rwanda would only send a tiny percentage of those people anywhere, so we've still got the same problem to deal with here at home.
I suppose Sunak's argument would be that Rwanda is a deterrent and it would stop people coming in the first place. Now, of course, that's untested, and if he wanted to test out that strategy, then he should have called the election later, which, you know, I think would have made a lot more sense. You could see the flights going off, and you could see, are people being put off from coming over here? But at the moment, you're right, you know, we have to sort of take the Prime Minister on trust, but on the basis of a record of the past 14 years where they have consistently missed or consistently broken their promises on migration. So, you know, the Keir Starmer line, quite rightly, that he threw back at Rishi Sunak was 14 years. You know, what is it about the last 2 years under Rishi Sunak's government that makes things seem sufficiently different that he will turn things around? You don't really see any signs of that.
No.
Fraser, so we look at this new poll out today, because it's pretty remarkable, isn't it? It's predicting a Labour landslide with a majority of 250 seats, and that the Tories will actually lose most of their seats, have fewer seats than the Liberal Democrats, and therefore they will become the official opposition.
This poll is absolutely extraordinary. Obviously, we have to take all polls with caution, and there's a big, you know, there is a big range of outcomes in what the polls are predicting. But, you know, to put this in context, this would be the worst Conservative defeat in history. Normally, people, you know, political scientists will go back to 1906 as the worst Tory defeat in history, where they had 135 seats. This puts them on 60 seats. Now, again, that means there are basically no Tory safe seats. It means the possibility of the Prime Minister losing his seat, again, something that hasn't happened in the post-war era. I don't think it's happened in the era of universal suffrage. So we're talking about a historic route here. And some of the candidates as well that might be left, you know, very few of the sort of big names that we might expect to be Tory leader after this election. Most of them are gone. You know, the list of people still staying, potentially people like James Cleverly, Steve Barclay, Mark Harper, doesn't sound like the kind of people who are going to turn this around. You know, they're not the people, I think, who could rescue the Tories from a historic defeat and bring them back into government.
OK, Fraser, we're going to talk to you a little bit later on, but for now, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
It is going to be an election night like no other, actually. I mean, possibly one of the most sort of exciting and dramatic in living memory. So if you'd like to join us, GB News will be live in Essex as Michelle Dewberry and Patrick Christys host our GB News exclusive coverage.
Yes, so if you want to be part of our exclusive live audience in Essex, you can apply now, either by scanning the QR code on the screen right now, if you've got your phone on you, or you can visit gbnews.com and apply to be part of that audience. And it will be brilliant, won't it, that watch party?
Yeah, it's going to be
to
fantastic.
Be a part of history like that.
And to sort of be able to stay there through the night and share the experience with other people will be quite something.
Yes, so do get on with that. That'll be very good. And you're doing the coverage here as well, aren't you?
Yeah, the main coverage that's going to be here in this very studio from 9:55 on Thursday, next Thursday, a week today. God,
yeah, can you believe that? That's come around so quickly.
So me and Camilla will be here right through till 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it'd be worth tuning in at R5 just to see what state we're in.
Oh, no, it'll be an incredible night. It will be really good. Now, since winning the right to vote more than 100 years ago, women have been targeted by politicians hoping to attract their support.
Well, in this general election, it's no different. Leaders proudly stating their party is the one for women. But come July the 4th, how much power do female voters have as values in society shift?
Well, our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has the story.
Jo's great-great-grandmother, suffragette Alice Hawkins, was on the front line of the fight for the right to vote.
This is the sash that Alice wore when she was a suffragette. She wore it to meetings, demonstrations, whenever she spoke.
Arrested and imprisoned 5 times, the working-class woman sacrificed in her lifetime to earn voting rights for women everywhere in Britain today.
Whenever they demonstrated, the police were very aggressive. There's no doubt that they were the victims of police brutality, but it just didn't stop them.
In Leicester, a statue celebrates Alice and the suffragette cause. 100 years on, people seeking power watch voter trends eagerly. So, which issues matter to women here?
My thing is for the NHS.
Women's rights, obviously. The future for the kids, for the children.
Ahead of the general election, the main parties are trying to attract voters from key groups and demographics, framing themselves as the party for business, for the environment and for women.
There are groups of women that parties target, and that is sensible.
Professor of Politics Rosie Campbell suggests that women tend to focus on education and the NHS when voting, whereas for men, the economy and Europe matter more.
Our lives are still, to some extent, organised around gender, and men's and women's lives are a little bit different still.
Why do we not seem to talk about the men's vote in the same way that we do the female vote?
One of the reasons we focus on women in this way is that elections, we're really interested in undecided voters who will vote. And women make up the majority of undecided voters, but they're just as likely to turn out on election day. So if you want to go and persuade people late in the campaign to vote for you, women are massively overrepresented in that group.
A recent YouGov poll looking at voting intentions for the coming election found women are more likely to vote Labour or Green than men, with Reform more likely to attract male voters. The Conservatives, Lib Dems and SNP have a more equal voting share across genders. The role of women in electing the next government is still to be seen. But for Jo, in memory of the suffragettes like Alice, the result matters less than the taking part.
If you want a voice in this world, if you want to impact the changes that are needed, then you have to vote. It's as simple as that.
A single vote can change the direction of Britain, a power that is held equally. Will Hollis, GB News, Leicester.
Now, to the latest on the search for the teenager Jay Slater, who went missing in Tenerife 11 days ago.
And the mayor of a town close to where Jay disappeared claims that some locals saw the 19-year-old from Lancashire watching games at the Euros.
Well, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley is here. Morning, Peter.
Morning.
I mean, what do we make of these sort of comments and these sort of claims this long into a missing persons inquiry?
And of course, they're increasing in number as the days go by. A CCTV image, which is barely decipherable, that could or could not have been him, watching the Euros, the mayor chipping in, all of that, at the moment appears to be making no difference whatsoever to the Guardia Civil's theory that they're working on and how they're conducting the search. Everything that they've done is in this very hostile terrain where there's gullies and ravines and caves and cactus that'll slice you like a razor. All they're searching, all their resources, including helicopters, drones, additional dogs, search teams, are focusing on those kind of areas. And there seems to be no shifting them from that working hypothesis, as British police would call it. So for the time being, that's what they're doing, and they don't seem to be changing their minds.
Is that quite a standard approach, Peter, or should they be looking or pursuing other avenues? Because on day 11, if they're still searching ravines, so far they haven't found anything.
No, they haven't, but terrain like that is often very slow to give up its secrets. There are tales from locals about people going out there, cyclists, for example, going across this terrain, disappearing and not being found for some considerable time. We'll have to wait and see. A senior investigating officer has to, of course, consider all options. But in this case, they seem to have been so fixed on this theory that if, at some later stage, and I say if, detectives are deployed to investigate witnesses who were in bars, for example, or we see people in forensic suits then going to examine a property or a vehicle of the such like. If we see any of that, then that will be a massive U-turn and could potentially cause enormous embarrassment for the Guardia Civil and, of course, some further upset for the family. We'll have to wait and see.
I mean, within all of this, I mean, if following the line of inquiry that they are doing, it's presumably a recovery operation, is it?
By now, sadly, yes, that is what it would, in essence, be, unless there was some form of absolute miraculous way in which Jay had managed to survive in the most hostile of territory. I think the longer it goes on, the less likely it is that this story is going to have a happy ending.
In terms of the claims that are being made now, and say that this mayor that's come forward and what have you, is that common in missing persons cases where there's no developments? Do people come up with these ideas, false sightings, fake sightings?
Oh, yes. I mean, for some years, I've been hunting a fugitive from Liverpool called Kevin Parle, who's been on the run for 20 years, wanted for 2 murders, and I'm still working on that. And I have had a considerable number of sightings of him. At one point, he was driving the number 63 bus in Altrincham, and on another occasion, he was going to the European Cup final to watch Liverpool, both of which, of course, were not true. In a case like this, and in recent cases like the disappearance of Nicola Bulley, we've seen armchair sleuths who basically have zero detective experience other than watching 2 episodes of Vera, coming up with their theories based on very little knowledge, training and experience. It's unhelpful. But of course the police can't afford to completely ignore it, just in case amongst all that drivel and traffic online, there might be a nugget that is useful.
Well, that's exactly what the family have said, haven't they? They've just said, please don't get involved with your conspiracy theories because you're distracting from the investigation. Peter Blexley, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, a 5-day junior doctor strike begins today in that ongoing dispute over pay.
Yes, the walkout was announced last month by the British Medical Association after they asked for a 35% pay rise. This is the 11th strike since March 2023.
Let's talk to our West Midlands reporter, Jack Carson, who joins us now. Morning to you, Jack. This is causing a lot of controversy, not just because it's another strike, but because of the weather conditions as well, which put further strain on the NHS.
Yeah, the NHS Confederation have been quite critical, really, about this strike, particularly around its timing. They say it will be a bitter pill to swallow for them, of course, as these junior doctors walk out at 7 o'clock this morning until the 2nd of July. As you were mentioning, it's the 11th time they've now gone out on strike in this long-running pay dispute. 35% is what they've been asking for. Now, a 9% on average pay increase was agreed, and the government, of course, before the election was called, were in talks with the British Medical Association around an additional 3% pay rise on top of that. But the BMA walked out of those talks, saying that they were unacceptable. And so, because there has been no new offer on the table, no credible offer, of course, they say they've had no choice but to call this strike again. Now, the last walkout was February, of course, when the NHS was dealing with of course, that backlog, of course, of cases, and also trying to work through that winter period. Now we're in this period of extra pressure, of course, with the hot weather, particularly, of course, with those yellow weather warnings that have been put in place around the country. We know that hot weather can cause problems with those people already with existing respiratory, of course, and heart problems because of the likes of heat stroke. And the medical director at at the NHS Confederation, Stephen Powers, said that this is going to hit the NHS very hard. And the Matthew Taylor, who's the chief executive of the NHS Federation, says that while they fully understand the genuine grievances junior doctors have over paying conditions, they say that they are frustrated that once again they'll be taking to the picket lines. But how is public support really in all of this? Are the junior doctors, have they still got the public on side? Here's what some people around the country have told us.
I don't fully agree with the strike. I get why they're doing it, the fact that they are undermanned, overworked, underpaid to a certain degree. But an 11th strike, surely it only takes one or two to try and get the message across.
Well, clearly it's gone too far. Government's clearly not prepared to negotiate sufficiently. I think it's years and years of being underpaid that this represents, so I fully support their strike.
Everybody deserves to be paid fairly, so I think it's a good idea. But, of course, the health system should work better for us patients.
They're just asking for too much too quickly. They've lost my sympathy because they just keep cancelling appointments. I mean, my grandma was affected, she needed a surgery and it just kept getting cancelled and she just basically then had to live in pain. You put your patients first and they're not.
Well, you can hear the views of the public there. Quite a mixed reaction. Now, 1.5 million appointments have been cancelled within the NHS in England because of this long-running pay dispute. But the British Medical Association said that the blame lays at the government's door for not making them a credible offer.
OK, Jack Carson there for us. Thank you very much indeed.
If you've got any views on that, we'd love to hear from you this morning. gbnews.com/yoursay. Right, let's see what the weather's going to do for you today. Here's Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Unseasonably wet and windy weather hitting parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. Further south, things are turning cooler. Still pretty warm across East Anglia and the southeast, but far from warm in the northwest. Gusty, blustery conditions for Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Quite a bit of rain coming in here as well. Grey start over the Midlands and southern England, but it will brighten up here as we go through the day. A few showers possible for Wales and developing across northern England also. Temperature-wise, well, still up into the mid-20s across East Anglia and the southeast before things turn fresher. Elsewhere, temperatures are down compared to yesterday's, and certainly it feels a lot cooler with this very wet and windy weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Not a day to be in the Highlands of Scotland. Quite blustery conditions, but largely dry across the far northeast of Scotland. Showers coming into southern Scotland, wet and windy also for Northern Ireland. Again, not great conditions here. Gusty winds and rain on and off throughout the afternoon. A few showers will get into northwest England, the odd one for Wales, but much of the south of England, the Midlands and East Anglia will be dry once that cloud from that weather front, which is introducing the cooler air, clears away. It stays pretty blustery and wet through the evening and overnight across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. A bit of a breeze blowing further south and a much more comfortable night as well. Much less humid tonight compared to the night just gone, as temperatures dip down to 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. So a fresher feel for Friday and generally a fine day across the south. Still pretty gusty across Scotland, still plenty more showers to come across the north and the west. A few showers for Northern Ireland, but generally a drier day here, and the winds will be easing tomorrow too. Breezy across northern England with a few showers zipping through, but the bulk of England and Wales looking dry. There'll be some sunny spells instead of the heat. Temperatures much closer to average for the time of year. Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it's the final week to see how you could win our summer giveaway. £15,000 in cash and a whole host of treats.
Yeah, lines close at 5 o'clock tomorrow evening, so make sure you don't miss out. Here are the details.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British Giveaway. If you're thinking about entering, just enter. And you never expect to win, but I did.
You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed.
Yes, now still to come, Paul Coyte's going to have all your sport. That's coming up next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Almost half of those seeking to have an affair are happier with their job than with their primary relationship. But what exactly does a cheater do for a living?
Well, medical assistants and nurses, surprisingly, top the lists of professions for female cheaters, and it's jobs in IT or tech for male cheaters, which I think is less of a surprise.
No.
This is all according to a survey by the dating site Ashley Madison.
OK, so why do people cheat? To answer this, we're joined now by broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy.
Morning, Lucy.
So, is it OK of me to say naughty nurses in this day and age? Am I going to get cancelled for that?
You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Been
Go on.
cancelled.
See ya.
There's the door.
There we
But
go.
yes, you're talking about the caring professions, and I think it's very appropriate.
Surprised by that.
That women, well, because they're very nurturing, very loving, very giving, whereas the males who are in tech and IT, very strategic.
Is there a link between high-pressure jobs, maybe nurses infamously, you know, they're working long hours, underpaid, stressed out? Is there a link between jobs of that nature and cheating, maybe as a relief?
Absolutely. Is it just about sex, or is it about emotional connection? Is it about emotional validation? And increasingly, people are discovering that their primary relationship is just not a place where they feel safe.
This survey found that personality didn't actually come into it that much. It was about half and half if you're an introvert or an extrovert that you'd be likely to have an affair.
I think that's right. And I think that just speaks to the fact that all people want to have a good emotional connection. So it doesn't matter whether you're really social or whether you're someone who has to recharge your batteries in private time, that actually we only ever want three things in life. We want to feel safe, we want to feel loved, but we also want to feel heard. And in increasingly a number of marriages and long-term relationships, we get into grooves, we get into ruts, and we stop hearing our partner, we stop listening to them, and they stop listening to us.
The People's Channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Tric Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tormini.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex, and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
All right, time for the sport this morning. Paul is here. Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, all right. All right.
Are you all right?
Should we say what was going on?
Yeah, I think we should, yeah.
You had a bit of a makeup disaster.
So anyway, my face, all around here, just started... because obviously, I can't go on television without makeup, for crying out loud. So something went on my face, and then it started getting hot. Then it started getting hotter, and as I came in, 8, 6 o'clock, what did you think? It was like, was it Violet Beauregard?
It was, yeah.
Whose face exploded?
It was all under your eyes. And
I know, I know. So anyway, I thought I'm OK now. But if I just...
You look great now.
You're just saying
We were
that,
a bit
Ellie.
worried about you at 6:01, but you're OK now.
I think I'm OK. Fine.
Yeah. 2 antihistamines,
Yes.
a face wash, and you're OK.
Now, to move on, I think Gareth Southgate needs more than antihistamines to try and save him at the moment.
Oh.
Is this a managerial problem or a player problem?
This is the question that I've been asking seriously since the start of the Euros. I've spoken to professionals, I've spoken to ex-England players. Everybody seems to say the same thing. It's a bit of both, which is a bit of a lame answer, but I do think the buck stops with Gareth Southgate. And Gareth Southgate, being the manager... See, a lot of managers will do this, and they're very quick to come... Because they think it's the right thing to do, is say, not the players, me. But... at the end of the day, when they do that, they put themselves, yes, in the firing line, and obviously they're the first ones that have got to go. I'd be saying, it's not me, it's them. It's all the players. Well, Gareth Southgate spoke yesterday because obviously fans were unhappy. You know, they were chucking empty plastic beer glasses towards him. He was aware of that. This is what he said in a press conference yesterday.
I understand it. I'm not going to back away from it. The most important thing here is that the supporters stay with the team. I understand the sort of narrative towards me, and you know that's better for the team than it being towards them. But it is creating an unusual environment to operate in.
What he did say there, which I think is really important, is it's important that the fans keep behind the team. Now, I think every fan, I've always said this, has the right to boo and shout and obviously within reason do whatever they want because they pay money and they're being entertained. But if we're going to go and win something, then absolutely the players need the fans behind them as well. So it needs to be a collaborative thing. So if they're going out feeling nervous, players feel even when fans are nervous. When things are looking uncomfortable, they feel it. So, you know, we need to go up because the way things are looking at the moment, we are never going to have a better chance of getting to a final. We did last time. Well, because it's the way that the draw has fallen. I mean, we've drawn. So we've got Slovakia on Sunday, which should not be a problem whatsoever. Of course, we've said that before.
We've said that last
In a
few
perfect
matches,
world, it should be fine. Slovakia, you've got Spain, Germany, Portugal and France and Belgium are on the other side of the draw. So we can't play any of them until the final, should we get there. So the way it goes, so if we got through the first one, which we should, the quarter-final would be against Italy or Switzerland. Italy, tricky, Switzerland. Semi-final would be against Romania, Netherlands, Austria or Turkey. So these, OK, they're good nations playing football, but they're not powerhouses. So we should get there, but it just depends on how well we play.
OK.
Which is always the answer.
We can keep the faith, I think.
The final.
Let's be optimistic.
Keep the 14th of July safe. Just 14th of July.
It's short and sweet this hour, Paul.
OK.
But we shall see you a little bit later on.
Because I can feel my face beginning to explode again, so I'm going to have to run, quick.
All right, we're going to be talking politics again for you in just a minute. This is Breakfast on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Argyll and Bute, the A85 is closed each way between Oban and Connell after an accident. In West Dumbartonshire, the A814 is closed each way along Glasgow Road in Dumbarton off the A82 because of a fire. The M56 in Greater Manchester is closed eastbound between junction 6 and 5 from Hale to Manchester Airport, where overnight roadworks have overrun. The M42 from Staffordshire into Warwickshire is closed southbound from junction 10 at Tamworth to 9 at Curdworth after a lorry caught fire. On the M69 in Leicestershire, the southbound exit at junction 2 at Burbage is closed for emergency repairs. In Swansea, the A48 is closed each way east of the Llansamnet traffic lights because of a burst water main. In West Sussex, the A29 is closed each way at Shripney after an accident last night. And in Somerset, the A303 is closed between Ilminster and Apottery for a tree fell bringing down power cables.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain. only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party. Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Tric Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tormini.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 6:41. Let's have a bit of politics for you then with Minister of State for Enterprise Markets and Small Business, Kevin Hollinrake, who joins us now. Very good to see you this morning. Thanks for your time. I've got to ask you about the debate last night because the YouGov poll, the sort of snap poll afterwards, has got Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak on 50% each, pretty much, on their performance last night. It's not good enough for the Prime Minister, is it?
Well, that's not how I saw it, but people will see different things from the debate, no doubt. What I saw is a clear choice, and the Prime Minister set this out. You've got a choice about the future, and it's 5 years of future. And you've got a choice between Rishi Sunak's fire and fortitude, which he showed, or Keir Starmer, a man without a plan, a man without any answers. That was very clear to me, and so I thought the choice is clear. That's what people have. It was interesting talking to a taxi driver on the way in this morning, and he was saying, your Labour will probably get in, and it'll be a disaster. And I think people shouldn't accept that. I get the push for change, but don't surrender yourself to a Labour government that's going to be a disaster. It's going to be higher taxation. It's going to be higher migration. That's clearly what we saw. You've got a clear choice now. Higher migration, higher taxation under a Labour government, lower taxation, lower migration under a Conservative government. That is the choice.
Well, migration couldn't get much higher, could it, than it is now under a Conservative government. And in terms of the taxation, this whole pension tax business, the government's saving pensioners from a tax which basically they implemented a few years ago with the threshold, the tax threshold block.
Well, on migration, Rishi Sunak's got a plan to have legal migration, and that's a clear plan, and also to tackle illegal migration, which is the Rwanda plan. People who come over the channel at the moment, they don't go into hotels, they don't go into council flats, they go into detention. That's where they go. Keir Starmer, on day he said this, will release those people onto the streets. That's the choice people have. And when pushed last night about what would you do with these people, Rishi Sunak said, Keir Starmer said, he wouldn't answer that question. And laughably, Rishi Sunak pointed out that, to deal with this, he'd have to talk to the Ayatollahs and the Taliban, which the audience clearly saw was ridiculous. Keir Starmer typically has no plan for this. We have a clear plan, and that's a choice people have. So, and on taxation, we are lowering taxes, national insurance for working people, national insurance for self-employed people, between £1,350 and £1,500. A clear plan to do that. Everybody I speak to knows that a Labour government would see higher taxes. That's what they do. It's in their DNA quite clearly. Do not Do not settle for that. Do not surrender to that. That's the clear message from the debate last night. That's the choice that people have.
But Sir Keir Starmer did set out his plan, didn't he, for illegal migration? He said that those in Britain would be processed, and he argued that some would be sent back to their country of origin. So he did make that point. And he made a point about the Tories, didn't he, that you have failed to implement an effective processing system for illegal migrants. He made the point that there's a backlog of 95,000 people costing millions of pounds in hotels every single day, and that the Rwanda plan in its current form would take 300 years to clear that backlog. So Rishi Sunak and the Tories have stuck themselves to a plan, nailed themselves to a plan that isn't going to work.
But look at the plan itself. Keir Starmer's going to return those people to Iran, to Afghanistan, to Syria. Do you honestly believe that would be the case? It will not be the case. Our plan is quite clear. Those people who come here go into detention, which they do today, because despite the fact we got some legislation through Parliament, despite the opposition, 130 times they voted against this legislation, those people go into detention and will go to Rwanda and they'll be processed there. That's what happens, and if their asylum applications are approved, they stay in Rwanda. That's what will happen. Keir Starmer, honestly, those people coming from those countries, it will process their applications, and if they're rejected, he's going to send them back to Afghanistan, to Iran and Syria. Do you honestly think that will work? It just won't work. So he says one thing but means another, and that's came across so clearly last night. We have a clear plan which has been opposed at every single juncture by the Labour Party and by Keir Starmer. His plan is somehow to smash the gangs. Well, we're already doing that. As Rishi pointed out last night, 82 gangs have been closed down by our government. But we've been trying to close the gangs down, the gangs down in terms of drug dealing for 50 years. And everybody knows it's whack-a-mole. You close one gang down, another one will pop up. That's not going to provide the solution. What you need is a deterrent, a clear deterrent. We're the only party that has one. There is difficult things to do, but we will do them, and we will make that work. Keir Starmer, you will simply see a flood of migration into this country, and the people I speak to on the doorstep, everybody knows that. Don't settle for it. You are voting on the 4th of July for the future, for 5 years of the future. Do not make the wrong decision. Vote for somebody who has that clear plan, who has the fire and fortitude to take this country forward in the right direction, not completely in the wrong direction.
Well, look, I mean, you're talking to an empty room, in a sense, with the greatest of respect. If you look at the latest polls, this MRP poll for GB News and others out today is shocking news for the Conservatives. It puts you on 60 seats behind the Lib Dems on 71. You wouldn't even be the official opposition come a week tomorrow.
Well, Stephen, you should spend more time with me on the doorstep, because that's not what I see at all, not hear at all on the doorstep. And the biggest poll we've had in recent weeks was the local elections, and the difference between the parties then was 9%, not some of the 20% we see in some of the polls. And 9% is a hung parliament territory. And that's where we are today. We've got to keep making the case on the doorstep and on news programmes such as yours to people. There is a real choice here. You can't simply settle for something, for someone with no plan and no answers to any of the questions that are presented to him. Stick with somebody who has turned this economy around. Look, about 18 months ago, inflation was at 11%. Today, it's 2%. The economy was forecast to go into a deep recession. It didn't. It's now growing as fast as any country in the G7. We have a plan to move forward to deal with get the economy growing, lower taxation, lower migration. That's the choice that people have. For me, there is only one choice, and one choice to make on the 4th of July. Choose Rishi Sunak. Choose the Conservatives. That's the future.
Look, some people may be listening to that, but it's back to the point I made before, and a lot of people point this out. It's just you've got a plan, you've got solutions for problems which you as a government have created. And that's where people get a bit tired of it all, isn't it?
Well, I get the point. It's been a difficult time. There's no doubt about it. You've been through the COVID crisis, of course, dealing with the aftermath of Brexit. You're dealing with the cost of living crisis. All those things are imposed upon us, and we've made mistakes ourselves. And Rishi Sunak was very clear about that and held his hand up to that, quite rightly. But now we've got the opportunity to move forward. You're making a decision not about the past, but about the future, the next 5 years. Are you going to choose somebody who has no plan and no answers, or somebody who has a clear plan for the future, somebody who can get the economy growing, who can lower taxes, who can deal with illegal migration and legal migration in a way that's going to make this country a safer place to be? It's going to secure borders, safer streets. That's what Rishi Sunak is promising. And I do not see the answers to those questions from Keir Starmer. Whenever he's presented the question, his answers change all the time. He has no clear idea about what happens in the future. And I hear the same thing on the doorsteps of him all the time in terms of what people think about him. I get the push for change, but don't simply change to something that will make matters worse. I think we are in a good position now in terms of the next few years. I do not see that a positive future over the next few years with a Labour government.
OK, Kevin Hollinrake, we're out of time with you, I'm afraid. That is Kevin Hollinrake, the Minister of State for Enterprise, Markets and Small Business. Thank you very much.
All right, let's have a quick look at the papers this morning with GP Dr René Honderkamp and the author Emma Wolfe. Good to see you both this morning.
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 Emma, let's kick off with the front of the Telegraph, because it's sort of following on from what was all happening last night that we were talking to Kevin Hollinrake about. Sunak saying, don't surrender Britain to Labour. It's very evocative language.
Yeah, I mean, I lost count of the number of times there Kevin Hollinrake said, we have a plan. I think after 20, I kind of gave up. And sometimes I think you're right, Stephen, sometimes people just want to vote for change, because to be presiding over over 50,000 migrants crossing the Channel, record high net migration, and then to be saying, sorry, we do have a plan, I think people feel like they're being taken for fools. Funnily enough, this was the theme of Sunak last night. He's got a new theme, which is don't surrender. He says, don't take, the Labour are taking people for fools. That was his new theme. Don't surrender control of our borders, don't surrender control of tax, don't surrender control of welfare spending. Looking at the debate, you could say that Sunak did OK. He didn't look like a man who's about to lead his party to a historic defeat, probably, next Thursday, a week today. But of course it's too little, too late. So that's what I'm saying. He did OK in that debate, and I think Starmer looked on the back foot. Starmer looked ruffled.
But Starmer's got more to lose.
He's got a lot more to lose, but he didn't answer questions. He was pushed 9 times on what's your plan for the boat. Yeah, we've heard about smashing the criminal gangs. So he did his best, but I think that Sunak is still fighting. But there's no chance. There's absolutely no chance. So
yeah, we have this really odd situation, don't we, where everything that Sunak said last night about the problems that we have and the plan that's needed to address them is absolutely correct. Unfortunately, nobody believes that he has the solution for it. But I think, in heart of hearts, most people don't believe that Starmer has the solution either. So they're literally just holding their nose and thinking, oh my goodness, I'll just opt out of this failed system into another one that might fail, but then again it might not. So there's no appetite for Starmer because he hasn't convinced us that he has a plan. 9 times, as you say, Emma, he refused to say what he would do with the immigrants. And it's lunacy to think that Labour are suddenly going to start flying people out of the country when their immigration is denied. Lunacy, if anybody believes that's going to happen.
It's just that whole issue, isn't it, that there is no enthusiasm for any political leader at the moment apart from Nigel Farage.
Exactly.
I mean, there is a lot of enthusiasm for reform.
And I think that Nigel coming out and reform, the whole resurgence a few weeks ago has electrified the campaign. It has made people think there is there is an alternative. And then there are people who agree with a lot of reform, but also are not happy with some of their policies. So it's I think turnout's going to be key next Thursday because there's a lot of people who feel at the moment politically completely homeless and don't know what to do.
Well, the bizarre thing about that poll as well that I think will rile people up after the election is that the Liberal Democrats are forecasted to get 13% of the vote and get, I think it's over 71 seats. Reform are forecasted to get 18% of the vote and get 18 seats. That's not democracy. That's not.
Well, it is democracy. In the
system
that we have.
There's
an argument to say Reform should have targeted seats.
Yeah.
which might have made a difference. Anyway, sad look, we're out of time because of the Minister. We'll lots more with you in the next hour, though, so don't panic. But for now, thanks very much.
Thank you, you two. Let's get the weather now, shall we, with Alex Deacon. It's going to be a scorcher.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Unseasonably wet and windy weather hitting parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. Further south, things are turning cooler. Still pretty warm across East Anglia and the southeast, but far from warm in the northwest. Gusty, blustery conditions for Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Quite a bit of rain coming in here as well. Grey start over the Midlands and southern England, but it will brighten up here as we go through the day. A few showers possible for Wales and developing across northern England also. Temperature-wise, well, still up into the mid-20s across East Anglia and the southeast before things turn fresher. Elsewhere, temperatures are down compared to yesterday's, and certainly it feels a lot cooler with this very wet and windy weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Not a day to be in the Highlands of Scotland. Quite blustery conditions, but largely dry across the far northeast of Scotland. Showers coming into southern Scotland, wet and windy also for Northern Ireland. Again, not great conditions here. Gusty winds and rain on and off throughout the afternoon. A few showers will get into northwest England, the odd one for Wales, but much of the south of England, the Midlands and East Anglia will be dry once that cloud from that weather front, which is introducing the cooler air, clears away. It stays pretty blustery and wet through the evening and overnight across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. A bit of a breeze blowing further south and a much more comfortable night as well. Much less humid tonight compared to the night just gone, as temperatures dip down to 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. So a fresher feel for Friday and generally a fine day across the south. Still pretty gusty across Scotland, still plenty more showers to come across the north and the west. A few showers for Northern Ireland, but generally a drier day here, and the winds will be easing tomorrow too. Breezy across northern England with a few showers zipping through, but the bulk of England and Wales looking dry. There'll be some sunny spells instead of the heat. Temperatures much closer to average for the time of year. Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Argyll and Bute, the A85 is closed each way between Oban and Connell after an accident. In West Dunbartonshire, the A814 is closed each way along Glasgow Road off the A82 in Dumbarton because of a fire. The M56 in Greater Manchester is closed eastbound between junctions 6 and 5 from Hale to Manchester Airport, where overnight roadworks have overrun. The M42 from Staffordshire into Warwickshire is closed southbound from junction 10 at Tamworth to 9 at Curdworth after a lorry caught fire. In Swansea, the A48 is closed each way east of the Llansamlet traffic light with a burst water main. In London, the South Circular is partly blocked eastbound by a burst water main just after Rushy Green in Catford. In West Sussex, the A29 is closed at Shripney after an accident last night. And in Somerset, the A303 is closed each way between Ilminster and Pottery after a fallen tree damaged overhead power cables. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. 1 week until the polls open.
Last night, Sunak and Starmer went head-to-head in the final election leaders' debate.
The Prime Minister telling the public not to surrender Britain's borders to Starmer.
Whilst the Labour leader hit out at the Tories' delay in processing asylum claims.
Also today, sighting shock. Tenerife locals say they've spotted the missing teen Jay Slater celebrating watching the Euros.
Hospital hell. A 5-day strike commences today by junior doctors in England over pay.
The Crown's cash. The annual report, which declares the wealth of the monarch, is going to be released later.
And should pensions be taking a tax hit? We'll be debating that shortly.
And the sport this morning. Well, it was confirmed last night that England's last 16 tie will be against Slovakia, who we've never lost to, by the way. Well, put the blockers on that now, haven't I? On Sunday at 5 o'clock. Gareth Southgate says that any fan anger is on him, but he's not alone because Portugal and Belgium both booed by their fans yesterday. And in cricket, England are in the semi-final of the T20 World Cup today, playing against India. But if it rains all day, which is forecast, India win. Work that one out.
Wet and unusually windy for the time of year across Scotland and Northern Ireland today. Further south, well, many places will see some sunshine, but we are saying goodbye to the hot weather across East Anglia and the southeast. Join me later for a full forecast.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Lots of you getting in touch this morning. Thank you so much. gbnews.com/yoursay. Still getting used to that. Tony says, what is the point of junior doctors striking when there's no government to answer their demands? Well, there has been a lot of criticism over the timing of it, hasn't there?
It was planned before we knew, I think. But there is still a government. The government is still in place. It's probably not going to be in place for much longer, is it?
Yeah.
But no, I get your point.
And it's the heat as well, isn't it? It's the heat wave. And there's been warnings about what that will mean for elderly people and the vulnerable. If there's a shortage of junior doctors on the wards, could be problematic, couldn't it?
Is patience running out? Let us know. Jay Marshall's been in touch saying the winner of last night's leaders' debate was Nigel Farage. As long as the left-leaning media keep excluding Farage, his popularity will continue to rise. I think there's a lot in that. However, it all gets very complicated, you know, because these things are governed by Ofcom. And would you believe that the way you have to represent, and this applies to us as well, actually, you have to represent parties in a certain way, and that is governed by how well they've performed at the last 2 general elections. Of course, reform didn't exist. Therefore, they don't get as much flesh in the game, as it were. And the rules, they don't seem to be very sensible rules when you look at how things are playing out this year, do you? We've got this huge party, which, when you look at this latest MRP poll, which we've got there, polling at, where are we? 18%.
Ahead, yeah.
Which is ahead of the Lib Dems on 13%, ahead of the Conservatives at 16%. So they are the second party, according to this MRP poll. However, it doesn't work out that way, just because of the way that Ofcom makes it go. So.
And finally, just one more from Andy Gallagher, who says, I'm a Farage supporter, but I actually felt proud of Rishi last night. I couldn't help but cheer him on. Unfortunately, he has nailed himself to the Rwanda plan, which has been his major mistake. Well, do keep those views coming in. gbnews.com/yoursay. your say.
Let's get the views of the Shadow Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson, who joins us now. Very good to see you this morning. Look, the polls seem to say 50-50 when it comes to how the two gentlemen performed last night. But one consistent complaint about Sir Keir's performance is he didn't really answer any questions. That's in terms of appealing to the British public, it's not good enough, is it?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. I think what we saw last night from Keir was a clear sense about the change that can come if people vote for a Labour government on the 4th of July. And in contrast, from Rishi Sunak, it felt very negative, not particularly inspiring about the change that our country needs. And my concern is that if we have another 5 years of the Conservatives, goodness knows where our country will be at the end of all of that. But if people want change, the only way that they can do that is to go out and vote for it. And whatever the polls say, whether that's polls after the debate or polls of public opinion, the only poll that matters is when people go and cast their votes on the 4th of July.
Can you outline for us then what would happen to the backlog of 95,000 people who have crossed the Channel in small boats? How would they be processed and how would they be returned to their home countries? Because we just had Kevin Hollinrake on the programme who said that those people could not be returned to the likes of Syria, could not be returned to the likes of Afghanistan. He doesn't think it's a plan that's going to work.
Look, it's the Conservatives who've taken us to breaking point on the asylum and immigration system. They've had 14 years now. We've got this huge backlog of cases, but the Conservatives have got no plan even to process those cases. So the first step is to get on with processing them. We've said that we'll have more caseworkers working on that in order to get through that backlog. We do need to have returns agreements in place so that when people don't have a claim to be here, they are returned. But whatever the Conservatives say, claiming somehow that this Rwanda gimmick is the answer is just total nonsense. They themselves know that they're talking about a very small number of people that could potentially affect. And frankly, if they were so confident in their plan, I'm not sure why they would have called the election before the flights had even got off the ground. We do need to make sure we secure our borders, and that's why we've said that we would deliver a border security command to smash the gangs at source and to make sure that people are not making that journey across the Channel.
Well, I mean, it's a fair question, though, isn't it, that was put to Keir Starmer last night. Is that what would you do with people from these countries where there is no return agreement? Either where we know and it's particularly those dangerous countries where we know we just can't send them back. So what is the plan? That just anyone who comes over, whether on small boats or any other way, from countries like Afghanistan, do we just have to keep them?
No, the first step is to make sure you're actually assessing their case. If you're not doing that, then you can't have any knowledge as to where they're from, how you can take action, or whether they've got a legitimate case to be here. So, for example, it is more than possible to return people quite quickly to countries like Albania. We had seen a big increase in the number of people travelling from Albania. In other cases where people do have a legitimate right, where that's been determined through the proper process that has existed for some time, then there is a way in which that is different. But we've got to get to grips with the huge backlog that we see, the millions of pounds that are being spent every single day on unsuitable hotel accommodation, and would use that money that's being spent on housing people at the cost of millions of pounds every day and redirect that money into taking action against the criminal smuggling gangs and making sure that we've got strong border enforcement.
Can I ask you about Labour's target for decarbonising the economy? Revealed by Darren Jones, the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, that it's going to cost hundreds of billions of pounds. 28 billion a year, not enough. He's admitted that that's tiny. In fact, he said it's going to be hundreds of billions of pounds that we need. So can you lay out just how many hundreds we're talking about here? Is that 200, 300, 400?
The point that Darren was making is that the answer to how we move to a position of decarbonising our economy, creating more jobs, is through private investment, not just public money. So you can invest relatively modest sums of public money, and that brings in real returns where it comes to private companies using that as a lever to deliver bigger private investment. We know that there are lots of companies that would relish the opportunity to invest directly in, for example, offshore wind to create jobs right across our country. So it's about how government can partner with business, yes, to manage our obligations, but also to create more well-paid, highly skilled jobs right across our country. And that's what we're focused on delivering. I think we can lead the world in this where it comes to the new technologies and create jobs. And that's the kind of positive change that a Labour government would bring. bringing good, well-paid jobs to areas of our country that have seen real decline in recent years.
Yeah, it sounds good on paper. It sounds an awful lot like Gordon Brown's PFI, doesn't it? Which didn't work, did it?
No, this is private companies who, we know from conversations that we've had with many, many global businesses, are keen to make investments here in the UK, but need a stable business environment in which to do so. And that's why the plans that Rachel Reeves has set out around economic security are so important, so that businesses can invest with confidence in the UK, something that hasn't been the case for some time now, given all of the chaos and turmoil that we had under Liz Truss and everything that's followed. And this election is the opportunity for people to make a choice whether they want to carry on with more of that, more chaos, more division, our economy continuing to experience real troubles and what that means for families, or a chance to turn a corner with Labour. But if people want that, then they have to vote for it.
But what people want to know is what they're voting for. I mean, let's look at taxes, for example. I mean, this has beleaguered your party since the beginning of this election campaign. The idea, not only the accusations being made by the Tories that it's going to cost, £2,000 more per household or whatever it is under Labour, but also the fact that the IFS, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, says you're not being honest. I mean, that applies to both the main parties, they say. But they say you're not being honest about what is going to be needed. Why then doesn't Keir Starmer say, well, yet some taxes are going to have to go up over the course of this Parliament, if that's true?
So we're in no doubt about just how difficult the situation is right now where it comes to the economy. Your viewers know it, they'll see it every day in their lives. But what we're determined to do is make sure that it's not working people who are paying the price. And that's why our manifesto has an ironclad commitment to not making sure that we do not increase income tax, national insurance or VAT. We have set out other measures, other tax measures, for example, ending the tax breaks that private schools enjoy, to use that as a down payment, direct investment into our schools, into public services. That is, again, the change a Labour government can bring if people vote for it. Unlike the Conservatives, who've seen taxes rise to a 70-year high, people know that they've been hammered time and again under the Conservatives. What Labour wants to do is make sure that working people are better off.
Yeah, but what about council tax? What about inheritance tax? What about the pensions tax, as the Tories have dubbed it? I mean, these, we encourage people. Keir Starmer said wealth is at the heart of what he wants to do. He wants to grow the country's wealth. He wants to grow individuals' wealth. What, so they can just be taxed more?
No, and we want to grow our economy. We want to make sure we are a strong country for wealth creation, and nothing in our manifesto requires any additional taxes beyond those that we've set out, for example, ending the tax breaks that private schools enjoy. And it's why growing our economy is so central to the mission that Labour and Rachel Reeves have set out, because we know we've got to get out of this doomed cycle of low growth and high taxation. We've got to get our economy moving once more and use that as an opportunity to create jobs right across our country. And the Conservatives, frankly, have just come out with a whole series of desperate lies and claims about things that we have no plans to do. And actually, it's their manifesto that contains billions of pounds of unfunded commitments that they can't tell us how they're going to deliver on it. And the risk is they'll crash the economy just like they did last time under Liz Truss.
Can we just clarify that? You said your manifesto contains nothing which would require increased taxes apart from anything that you've already mentioned, which is things like, the tax break that private schools enjoy. So does that mean that your manifesto contains nothing which would require increased council tax, increased inheritance tax, these so-called wealth stealth taxes? You can rule that out, can you?
All of our plans are fully funded and fully costed, and your viewers can go and look at our manifesto and see at the back of it a series of commitments and a clear plan for how we will pay for each and every one of them. They won't find a similar version where it comes to the Conservatives, I can tell you that.
Is that costed for the full 5-year term?
It's over the course, yes. It sets out the full range of ways in which we will pay for every single measure that we've set out, every policy, fully funded, fully costed, because we know it's important to take a responsible approach where it comes to the public finances.
Can I just ask you, and I know we're being hammered because we're probably talking to you for too long. However, is it right that we live in an electoral system where, if we look at the GB News MRP poll out this morning, I mean, you do very well. You're on 450 seats, according to this. Lib Dems on 13%, Conservatives on 16%, both getting vastly more seats than Reform on 18%. it's time to change the system, isn't it?
Well, I'd just say that there is big variation between different pools in terms of outcomes. So I would just slightly caution against reading too much into one pool, because in another pool, for example, it showed that 175 seats are just too close to call where it comes to the outcome. So they could go either way. You're talking about a few hundred votes here and there that might determine the outcome of the election within particular seats. But the system that we've got at the moment, where it comes to first past the post, is one that's endured for a very long time, and I think it has real merit to it.
Well, it plays to your advantage, doesn't it? Bridget Phillipson.
It didn't last time around when Labour went down to our worst defeat since the 1930s. So, you know, but the reason that we're in a stronger position during this election is because Keir has turned the Labour Party around and put us back in the service of working people. You know, voters can make their own judgments as to whether they think that parties are listening to their concerns and have got manifestos that address them.
Bridget Phillipson, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. It's fascinating. They're not going to. This is the problem. No party in power will ever
want it at all.
Well, of course not. No. I mean, why would you? You know, but when you look at the polls like that, you can understand why some people feel a bit cheated.
Yeah, especially if you're a developing and growing party. Let us know what you thought about that interview. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Now, election night is going to be historic, one way or another, for whatever the outcome, because if the Tories do well, for example, it's still going to be a historic election because of what the polls have said. So it'll be a polling disaster. If it follows on from what the polls are saying, well, it's a historic
wipeout.
Well, yeah, for the Tories, a historic night for the Labour Party. The emergence of a new party in reform, which, according to this new poll, could get 18 seats, which is still important. So why don't you join us for election night? We're going to be live in Essex. Michelle Dewberry and Patrick Christys are hosting a watch party.
Yes, if you want to be a part of the exclusive live audience in Essex, you can apply now. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now if you've got your phone with you, or you can visit the website gbnews.com.
/election party.
/election party, yes.
Throwing that in
Very
there.
well said.
Yes.
Be good. That'll be good. Watch party.
Yeah. Go down there.
You're watching it anyway. You might as well be together.
Yeah.
Get excited.
You're going to be down there all night. There'll be food and drink laid on. I should imagine.
I'm sure.
So, you know, just to go and have a good time. And then you can watch what we're doing here in the studio. And then we'll be dipping into the party as well. And there's guests, and you can all talk and have your say. It's going to be great.
Yeah, so do get involved. Now, to the latest on the search for the teenager Jay Slater, who went missing in Tenerife 11 days ago.
Well, the mayor of a town close to where Jay disappeared claims that some locals saw the 19-year-old watching the Euros.
Well, senior global reporter for Mail Online, Nick Pisa, joins us now. Good to see you this morning, Nick. And now on day 11 in this search, and still no sign of Jay.
That's right, yes. And as you say, there we had this rather bizarre and confusing report from the mayor of Santiago del Teide. It emerged actually late on Tuesday afternoon. I managed to speak with him yesterday morning, and he was keen to sort of clarify and clear up the situation. He said, as you said, that he'd spoken to some locals who had told him that they had heard that they had seen Jay drinking in bars in a resort called Los Guiantos, which is just about 10, 15 miles further up the coast from Santiago del Teide. And we know that the police have been speaking to them just to rubber stamp and clarify if these reports are true. I should stress that the mayor has no confirmation himself. He just says that the police are doing their job and searching for Jay, and that they all hope and pray that he is found safe and well as soon as possible. And that search is continuing. As you say, it's into the 11th day now. They brought in specialist dogs from Madrid to scour the mountainside above the village of Masca, where his mobile phone last pinged. They've used helicopters, and they're also using drones up there. But as we say, 11 days on now and still no search of him at all. I should say that people keep saying about the weather, but Masca village is about 3,000 feet, 1,000 odd metres up. So the weather there is actually quite cool, certainly down here at sea level in Playa de las Americas, where he was last seen at the nightclub as well on that Monday morning, it is hot. It is about 30 degrees, but certainly up in the mountains, it is a lot cooler. So I don't think weather is that much of an issue during the day, but obviously during the night, it does get cold up there.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, this whole sighting issue, Nick, I mean, it's obviously making a lot of headlines over here, but how problematic is it? Because if, as you say, it's the mayor says he's spoken to people who have been told that I mean, it's all removed and removed and removed, and you just wonder how much credence it can possibly have.
Yeah, it is. You do have to wonder if it's all Chinese whispers, but I suppose at the end of the day, they just have to rubber stamp and double check everything, because if by a certain fluke that it is true and they then miss it and they've lost that clue, then obviously there would be all hell to pay for from the Spanish police. So they have to go through all that. They are searching the video cameras and the webcams that are in Santiago del Teide, and they've asked for the firms that operate and maintain those security cameras to hand over their video. But obviously this is going to be a very laborious and time-consuming operation for them.
Nick, can you outline for us how difficult the terrain is there? Because a lot of people are asking, day 11, why hasn't Jay been found yet?
It is very rugged up there, and the terrain is quite tough. It's covered with cacti, and there's paths that lead off down to the sea. I mean, it's a good hour-and-a-half trek from Masca down to the beach. I should say that the path actually peters out. It was washed away a bit, apparently, in a heavy storm a few years ago. So the path that he could possibly have been on doesn't actually reach the sea. But it's very dramatic landscape. As I say, there's mountains, and the drops are about they're very the hairs on the back of your neck certainly stand up when you get to the edge of those paths. But they've been there using dogs, as I say, and drones, and scouring that mountainside with helicopters, and had no luck at all.
OK, Nick, thanks for bringing us up to date.
Now, Princess Anne remains in hospital for a 5th day after she sustained a concussion from being kicked by a horse on her estate.
Well, it means she'll miss the state visit completely from the Japanese emperor. She hasn't been involved so far.
And her husband's Timothy Lawrence was saying yesterday it's going to take her a long time to recover.
Anyway, look, today we get the Crown Estate figures, and they will show just how rich the king actually is.
Yes. Well, joining us now to unpack all of this is former royal editor of The Sun, Duncan Larkham. Good to see you this morning, Duncan. Should we begin with the Princess Royal? Because it really is such worrying news, isn't it, that she remains in hospital and her husband's saying she's recovering slowly.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it certainly suggests that perhaps whatever she's had happened to her is worse than concussion, because I don't think you'd be kept in that long in hospital for a simple concussion. So yeah, it's sort of more bad health news for a family that, as we know, this year has had a bit of a horrific start.
Yeah, I mean, it's heck of all things to happen. We know she's absolutely horse mad. And you do wonder what's happened, because I mean, this is a horsewoman who knows her animals. I mean, can't imagine how she's been caught out like this.
No, that's right. I mean, my daughter's a very, very keen equestrian herself, and she knows, when you know horses that well, you know where you can stand, you know which horses are which and their different temperaments and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's certainly a bit of a surprise that she would suffer from being kicked by a horse, if indeed that's what happened. So, yeah, I mean, Princess Anne is the hardest working royal almost every single year. So for her to be taken away from royal duties, even if it's just temporary, is more strain on the rest of the royals, with Catherine out of action and King Charles reducing what he's doing because of his cancer treatment.
And she is such a private person as well, isn't she? She's very much like her late mother in the sense that she just likes to get on with it. She would hate all of this fuss surrounding her, wouldn't she?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think she would. I mean, Princess Anne is just a kind of never complain, never explain type, just like her mother's mould, very hardworking. And a lot of the work she does goes unreported. She just sort of gets on and grinds it out.
All right, let's talk money, Duncan, should we? What are we expecting from the Crown Estate sort of, I don't know, what do you call it?
The figures.
Balance sheet.
Yeah, it's the annual day when the Palace sort of release how much money they've taken in revenue, and also how much it's cost the British taxpayer to have the royals. But one thing we won't find out is how much it costs to protect them. That's always kept a complete secret, and it's thought to be an absolutely monumentally large sum of money in policing costs and other security costs. So we'll have an insight into how King Charles's finances have shored up in what will be his first financial year as king. I think it will be, as ever, a chance to see what sort of value for money you get from the royal family. Normally they come out with a kind of headline figure, like it's the equivalent of a pint of milk for every member of the British public, something like that. So, it always makes for an interesting read.
Yeah, I tell you, it's odd though, isn't it, how all these things work in terms of their own apparent wealth, not what it costs us in that sense, but their own apparent wealth. When he became king, didn't he sort of pass the buck, as it were, to Prince William? Didn't Prince William become substantially better off?
Well, that's right. As the heir to the throne, Prince Charles, as he was had the Duchy of Cornwall for his private income. That netted him around about £20 million a year, and it's an estate handed to William when he became king. And it's actually made William an instant billionaire overnight, one of the country's biggest landowners, with a portfolio of land and property worth believed to be £1.3 billion. But that goes to fund the heir. The Crown Estates, again, huge landowner, huge property owner around the country, and that's where they derive their wealth from.
Duncan, we haven't got long with you, but I just want to ask you about the King and Queen welcoming the Emperor and the Empress of Japan this week. It has been a wonderful state visit, hasn't it?
Yes, it's been a real success given the strains that are on the family. Obviously, we saw Prince William joining the rest of the royals, but we didn't see his wife Katherine. She was still at home recovering from cancer treatment. So I think it shows the royal family at their best, really, this kind of soft diplomacy at a time, post-Brexit, where trade links with Japan are hugely important. And it seems to have gone off incredibly well, with the usual pomp and ceremony and the Mall decked out in Japanese flags. A real royal welcome, if you like.
Quite right, too. Duncan, really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Duncan. And a starring role as well for the Prince of Wales, who we saw in Claridge's picking up the Emperor and the Empress.
Yes,
and it was great, wasn't it? We're not going to stop talking about it because it was so fun.
No, we'll play the video again for you a little bit later on.
We will.
Right, let's go check on the weather with Alex Deakin.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Unseasonably wet and windy weather hitting parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. Further south, things are turning cooler. Still pretty warm across East Anglia and the southeast, but far from warm in the northwest. Gusty, blustery conditions for Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Quite a bit of rain coming in here as well. Grey start over the Midlands and southern England, but it will brighten up here as we go through the day. A few showers possible for Wales and developing across northern England also. Temperature-wise, well, still up into the mid-20s across East Anglia and the southeast before things turn fresher. Elsewhere, temperatures are down compared to yesterday's, and certainly it feels a lot cooler with this very wet and windy weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Not a day to be in the Highlands of Scotland. Quite blustery conditions, but largely dry across the far northeast of Scotland. Showers coming into southern Scotland, wet and windy also for Northern Ireland. Again, not great conditions here. Gusty winds and rain on and off throughout the afternoon. A few showers will get into northwest England, the odd one for Wales, but much of the south of England, the Midlands and East Anglia will be dry. once that cloud from that weather front, which is introducing the cooler air, clears away. It stays pretty blustery and wet through the evening and overnight across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. A bit of a breeze blowing further south and a much more comfortable night as well. Much less humid tonight compared to the night just gone, as temperatures dip down to 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. So a fresher feel for Friday, and generally a fine day across the south. Still pretty gusty across Scotland, still plenty more showers to come across the north and the west. A few showers for Northern Ireland, but generally a drier day here, and the winds will be easing tomorrow too. Breezy across northern England with a few showers zipping through, but the bulk of England and Wales looking dry. There'll be some sunny spells instead of the heat. Temperatures much closer to average for the time of year. Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now it is the final week to see if you could win our summer giveaway. It's 15 grand in tax-free cash and a whole host of treats.
Yes, but lines do close at 5 p.m. tomorrow, so make sure you don't miss out. Here are all the details that you need.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. If you're thinking about entering, just enter. And you never expect to win, but I did.
You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come for you. Should pensions be protected from tax raids? We're going to talk about that next.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Tric Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tormini.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex, and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Now, tax is a big talking point in this election, and particularly when it comes to pensions. All gets very complicated, though. Should state pensions be taxed? Well, they're going to fall into the threshold. It all gets very complicated. It looks like, obviously, with this triple lock plus, the Conservatives say, well, we're not going to tax your state pension at all. Labour, well, it looks like it could happen.
Well, let's get the thoughts of political commentator with Young Voices UK, Jack Rowlett, who thinks pensions should not be protected, and former Minister of State for Europe, Denis McShane, who thinks that we should. Jack, let's start with you, shall we? So you think pensions should not be immune from tax rates?
Well, the UK's public finances are in an absolute state. Debt to GDP is on course for a 100% ratio in the near future. And Labour and the Tories are going into this election pledging not to raise income tax, national insurance or VAT. And the current spending plans, the current fiscal framework that's in place, therefore implies a number of cuts to unprotected departments across the board. So any incoming government needs to be looking at different sources of revenue that it can raise. And actually, if we're looking at, for example, the 25% tax-free lump sum that you can withdraw from a pension, in an aging society where an increasing number of people are retiring every year, policies like that become increasingly unaffordable. And so actually we need to be doing what other countries are doing. We need to be having a more sustainable approach on this. For example, in America, where support is more targeted at lower income pensioners rather than applying these carve-outs across the board, and absolutely keeping exemptions that encourage people putting money into their pensions in the first place. But by the time you're withdrawing money from those pensions, it doesn't seem fair to be treating income differently purely based on your age.
Dennis, what do you make of it all?
I'm slightly confused in the sense that obviously I'm a pensioner and I pay tax on all of my income, including the pension. What worries me is a report out just 6 weeks ago saying that just shy of 1 million British pensioners live in a state of deprivation. Well, here's a pensioner poverty. This is something worse. They're deprived the income to buy the right food, the right medicines, a holiday, a bit of a break, or whatever. And that's all happened on the Tory watch, especially the Rishi Sunak watch, because he's so rich himself. He's utterly out of touch with the way most people live. Now, all I can say is that I've seen Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer, Bridget Phillipson, everybody, Dan Jones, swear on their mother's milk and worse that they're not going to raise taxes. They may be forced to, but my goodness, they'll be a mother and father of all rows, and it will not be a good way of starting any government to suddenly reverse ferret on something you've made such a big fuss of promising you won't do.
Jack, what do you make of that?
Well, I think, Dennis raises the point of those pensioners in deprivation, which I agree is a disgrace. But actually, that makes the case even more for saying we shouldn't have these universal tax exemptions across the board. Actually, you should be targeting tax at those pensioners who are wealthier, precisely so you can provide more support to those pensioners who are in genuine need because they can't afford food or basic living costs.
Yeah, but
I think
To be fair, Jack, I mean, we're talking as though people don't pay tax on their pensions.
Yes.
I mean, of course they do.
No, but
they're already paying a lot of tax on their...
Yes.
I mean, some people, if they're well off already, are paying 40% tax on their pension.
Yes, I mean, I'm the pensioner representative here, I suppose. And I'm sorry, yes, I pay just as much tax as when I was at work.
Yeah, but the controversy yesterday was over Labour's refusal to rule out abolishing the 25% tax-free lump sum that you can withdraw from your pension. And it's the discussion over whether we should abolish that that I think is really important.
And actually,
if you're...
Jack, what was that in? The Daily Express, a paper like that? Be serious.
Well, no, it was Bridget Phillipson, I believe, refusing to rule it out.
A week after the election, you're going to be putting Rachel Reeves or anybody. I mean, these things have been fine-tuned, fine-honed, fine-debated, fine-butter-patted for the last year. And suddenly somebody comes up and says, will you guarantee not to do this before an election? Not going to happen. Will Rishi Sunak guarantee he won't give any more peerages to people who give lots of money to the Tory party? No. I mean, when did you stop beating your wife?
I mean, the issue here, Jack, really, and what they've been debating about is about the state pension and whether pensioners should be exempt from paying any tax on that. But that's all to do with the thresholds, which this government froze anyway.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So workers have been getting a raw deal as well. I really think the amount of tax you pay should be dependent upon your wealth and how much income you have coming in to your household or to yourself every month. It shouldn't be based on your age. In a society where you have more and more people of old age, it becomes increasingly unsustainable to have these carve-outs, whether it's the 25% tax-free lump sum, whether it's, Sunak's proposed policy of, the triple lock plus. That isn't sustainable in a society where the dependency ratio is rising all the time, because meaning that workers have to foot the bill more and more, which means they can't afford to save for their retirement. And so they're going to become more of a burden on the state later down the line.
Jack, if I may, you mixed up two completely separate categories, wealth and income. Income tax is based on the income you have. A wealth tax we don't really have in this country. They do in many other countries. It's quite serious. It's called a general contribution of solidarity. It's in Germany, it's in France, other countries, and it's based, on 1% of all your wealth. Now, that would be controversial. Maybe it would be a good idea. Maybe it will arise. It's certainly not an offer at the moment. So, but please, don't talk about wealth and income. They're two.
Okay, gentlemen, we are out of time, I'm afraid. Thank you very much, Dennis McShane and Jack Rowlett. Good to see you both this morning. Thank you very much.
It's a Green Party policy, that wealth tax, just to throw that in the mix. Paul Coyte's going to be here with all your sport in a couple of minutes.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Argyll and Bute, the A85 is closed each way between Oban and Connell after an accident. In West Dumbartonshire, the A814 is closed each way along Glasgow Road off the A82 Stirling Road in Dumbarton because of a fire. In Lancashire, the A671 is closed westbound along Yorkshire Street in Burnley from Belvedere Road to the A682 Centenary Way because of subsidence. In Greater Manchester, Carrington Lane in Carrington is closed off Flixton Road after a vehicle caught fire. The M42 from Staffordshire into Warwickshire is closed southbound from junction 10 at Tamworth to 9, the Curdworth and Coleshill turn, for emergency repairs to damage caused when a lorry caught fire yesterday afternoon. And in Swansea, the A48 is closed each way east of the Llansamlet traffic lights because of a burst water main. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true.
You're not wrong.
No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time for the sport with Paul Coit.
Morning.
I nearly sang the song. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I sing it a lot. I don't know why.
An
It's
earworm. Yeah,
Earworm.
clearly. Should we talk about the Euros?
Yes. What was the question you had for me earlier?
Oh, yes,
Ellie?
I've had a question from Jeremond.
By the
who
way, I
says...
just want to let you know, open to questions.
Yes, he likes a question.
I do.
Because you always throw us questions, so this is good.
Yeah, go on, get on with it.
Morning, can you
Yes.
ask Paul how much the England football players get paid for taking part in the Euros?
How much do you think?
I thought they did it for nout.
No. Well, kind of, but
I
if
think
there is
millions.
a fee. There is a fee that they would get paid. How much do you reckon it is from the FA?
Compensation fee.
Millions.
5,000 a match.
Not bad, 2,000. So what happens is they get £2,000 a match, and since 2007, every player gives that £2,000 up, which goes to a charity, and I think it's about 10 million quid's been raised so far.
Oh, wow.
So
Very good.
they do have the choice, but compared to what they earn, so which is nice. So they get this £2,000 fee, goes straight to charity.
Oh, that's quite nice. I
So
like
there
that.
we are.
Well, that was worth asking. Very good.
It was.
There
Oh,
we
good
are.
on them. Good boys.
Right, let's go through pretty much what's going on in the Euros. Gareth Southgate, he's taking a lot of the flack, and he has said, you know what, don't give it to the players, give it to me. This is what he said yesterday.
I understand it. I'm not going to back away from it. The most important thing here is that the supporters stay with the team. I understand the sort of narrative towards me, and you know that's better for the team than it being towards them. But it is creating an unusual environment to operate in.
You know what? I don't think he's going to be the manager whether we win it or whether we don't.
No.
I really
I would agree. I would agree.
I
but
think
it's-
everybody's had. I think the fans have had enough. And I think, to be honest with you, I think he's had enough as well now.
Yeah.
He seems.
He doesn't
his
seem
demeanour is like-
invigorated.
No, he doesn't. The demeanour seems a little different. You know, it's when the fans turn against you, then you think, you know what, maybe it's over. But it's not over. It's not. Slovakia, we play on Sunday, and England should beat Slovakia. And the way that the draw has gone, the way it's opened up, it could not be any better. It really couldn't. The quarter-final, should we beat Slovakia, is Italy versus Switzerland. Then the semi-final, if you get through there, not that I'm getting ahead of myself, but Romania, Netherlands, Austria or Turkey. All the real big boys are on the other side of the draw. So you've got whether you've got the France or whether you've got Portugal and Germany, you can't beat any of them or Belgium until the final. So it's looking OK.
We should say, I always Phil Foden. Who always to me looks so young.
I know.
He's flown off home.
How many has he got? 3? He's got 3 already.
This is number 3.
This is the
number
third.
3.
Yeah, this is the third child.
So his wife's due.
Well, yeah, it was interesting because yesterday there was the news that it was on a personal matter.
Yes.
And you're thinking, well, why is it
happened?
something terrible's happened? But you think that would be released straight away because I can't see what the problem is. It's fantastic. So obviously there for the baby and then maybe back for Sunday. So I don't know. I don't know whether it's a C-section and it's organised or what.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Listen, we've got time for the guy with the beer
Go
on
on.
his head.
Yeah, go on.
Have a look at this. There's so many people that are helping out. What would you call them? They are. You get them in the Olympics and they're like
the volunteer things.
The volunteers. Anyway, this fella in Cologne. Look at this guy. Look
he's
at this.
very good.
He's balancing. How many are there on his head there? He walks around.
Well, one.
Balancing. Mohammed El Benawi. He's in Cologne. He starts with 1. Then he puts the next lot on.
Oh.
There's no glue involved. There's no camera tricks. He will walk around. But the thing is, though, you're going to have to be very tall if you want a beer off the top. But there he is. Look at that. It's
There you go.
isn't it? That's
I'm impressed.
I know.
Good on him.
All the football we could show, and we're going to show the guy with the beer on his head.
No, I always put
That's
him
what the
more
people
on.
want to see.
One, two,
He must
three.
have incredibly long arms to be able to get the... Look, these bystanders just can't believe what they've seen.
He must have a very flat top of his head.
Yeah, I wonder what that is.
Oh, he's got more going
There's
on.
more going on. Oh, my goodness.
One, two, three, four,
Oh, no, I can't.
6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9 pints of beer on his head.
Yeah.
It's impressive. We're out of time. Paul,
Thank
see you
you.
later.
Phil Liggett talking about Tour de France.
Yes, Phil Liggett's coming up next. Wow,
Great.
amazing, man. The man is a legend. We've got the papers in just a minute.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Tric Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tormini.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
The mystery surrounding the disappearance of flight MH370 has perplexed the planet now for 10 years. But now all of a sudden researchers at Cardiff University have piped up and said, oh, we heard a beep. Aerospace engineer, founder of MH370search.com is Richard Godfrey. Richard, are we going to find this thing?
The new research is much more thorough and gone in much more detail. It is picking up acoustic waves under the water. It's not conclusive, but it's a good step forward.
Is this a cover-up job of epic proportions? Do you think something quite sinister happened to this plane? Because it is all very odd.
I think you're right. It is all very odd. It is. We have a lot of data, but we don't have the final analysis, and we won't until we actually find the wreckage. The Indian Ocean is a huge place, 77 million square kilometers. When we find the plane, we can recover the flight data recorder, the cockpit voice recorder. We can learn a lot more.
Do you think someone might have shot it down?
No, the plane flew until it ran out of fuel. The plane was perfectly in working order. There was an active pilot right until the end. So my only theory at the moment is the captain of the plane actually committed a hijack of his own plane. But until we find it, we won't be able to prove that.
We are potentially a step closer now to knowing and to one of the greatest mysteries of recent times anyway, finally being solved. As aerospace engineer there, Richard Godfrey, thank you.
Britain's election channel, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. It is 51 minutes past 7. We're going through the papers with Dr. Renee Honderkamp and Emma Wolf. Very good morning to you both. Where should we begin? Should we talk about the topic of women's spaces, which came up in the debate last night, Renee?
Yes, please, because it's something close to my heart. And I think last night we really saw the hypocrisy that is going on within the Labour Party, where they are saying that women will always be protected, but actually, under their breath, and the other side of it, they're saying, well, you know, if somebody has a gender recognition certificate, which we're going to make easier, by the way, then those people can go into women's spaces. You can't believe both things. You cannot protect biological women and believe that a gender recognition certificate makes a man a woman. So it's hypocrisy, and Labour are going to destroy women's safety, girls' safety at school, and this...
What you need protecting from trans women?
We need to protect... Our spaces need to be protected, Stephen. There's a reason that women have protected spaces. It's because women get assaulted. Men don't. Women do. We've already seen...
By trans women, though.
Well, you don't know that.
I mean, you might get... I mean, there are people who pretend to be trans to target women.
OK, fine.
But not proper
But
trans
it doesn't
women...
matter. But it doesn't matter. Of
course it matters.
No, it doesn't. It's like saying that only some men rape women, therefore all men and women should be together. It's true, very few men rape women, but we don't know the ones that will go on.
Yeah, but the problem is what you then end up doing is alienating some very, very vulnerable people.
Well, let them have their own space. Let there be another space. Why should I have to find the solution as 51% of this population for a very, very small amount of people? There have been nurses this week where a trans woman with a penis has been paraded naked in front of them in their changing rooms, and when they complained, they were told they needed to be re-educated. No, someone with a penis shouldn't be in their changing room.
Emma, what do you think?
Well, I'm worried about Labour plans on a similar issue, which are the sort of rolling back of the guidance around, you know, for nurseries and schools. With a 3-year-old, I'm really worried about what they're going to be. The kind of very, very complex. I mean, look at the complexity of the debate that you guys have just had. I don't want this kind of blurring of boundaries, of the gender boundaries, being introduced into schools, into sort of so-called sex education as early as sort of 9 or 10. I don't think children can cope. I don't think adults can cope with the complexity of this debate. I think that most of us are very, very happy for people to live and to love exactly as they want to dress and to live their lives. But I think the trans issue is far more complicated than that.
Out of time, sadly. Very short, I know.
Thank you both. I'm so sorry.
Here's the weather.
Get to the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Unseasonably wet and windy weather hitting parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. Further south, things are turning cooler. Still pretty warm across East Anglia and the southeast, but far from warm in the northwest. Gusty, blustery conditions for Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Quite a bit of rain coming in here as well. Grey start over the Midlands and southern England, but it will brighten up here as we go through the day. A few showers possible for Wales and developing across northern England also. Temperature-wise, well, still up into the mid-20s across East Anglia and the southeast before things turn fresher. Elsewhere, temperatures are down compared to yesterday's, and certainly it feels a lot cooler with this very wet and windy weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Not a day to be in the Highlands of Scotland. Quite blustery conditions, but largely dry across the far northeast of Scotland. Showers coming into southern Scotland, wet and windy also for Northern Ireland. Again, not great conditions here. Gusty winds and rain on and off throughout the afternoon. A few showers will get into northwest England, the odd one for Wales, but much of the south of England, the Midlands and East Anglia will be dry once that cloud from that weather front, which is introducing the cooler air, clears away. It stays pretty blustery and wet through the evening and overnight across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. A bit of a breeze blowing further south and a much more comfortable night as well. Much less humid tonight compared to the night just gone, as temperatures dip down to 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. So a fresher feel for Friday, and generally a fine day across the south. Still pretty gusty across Scotland, still plenty more showers to come across the north and the west. A few showers for Northern Ireland, but generally a drier day here, and the winds will be easing tomorrow too. Breezy across northern England with a few showers zipping through, but the bulk of England and Wales looking dry. There'll be some sunny spells instead of the heat. Temperatures much closer to average for the time of year. Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Argyll and Bute, the A85 is closed in both directions between Oban and Connell after an accident in the early hours of this morning. In West Dumbartonshire, the A814 Glasgow Road is closed off the A82 in Dumbarton after a fire. In Lancashire, the A671 is closed westbound along Yorkshire Street in Burnley from Belvedere Road to Centenary Way because of subsidence. In Greater Manchester, Carrington Lane in Carrington is closed off Flixton Road after a vehicle caught fire. The M42 from Staffordshire into Warwickshire is closed southbound from junction 10 at Tamworth to 9 at Curdworth for repairs after a lorry caught fire yesterday afternoon. On the M49 near Bristol, there's a lane closed southbound where a vehicle caught fire between the M4 and M5, causing queues. And in Swansea, the A48 is closed each way east of the Llansamlet traffic lights because of a burst water main. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good morning to you. It's just 1 week until the polls open.
Last night, Sunak and Starmer went head-to-head in the final election leaders' debate.
The Prime Minister telling the public not to surrender Britain's borders to Starmer.
Whilst the Labour leader hit out at the Tories' delay in processing asylum claims.
Also this morning, sighting shock. Tenerife locals say they've spotted the missing teen Jay Slater celebrating watching the Euros.
Hospital hell. A 5-day strike commences today by junior doctors in England over pay.
The Crown's cash. The annual report, which declares the wealth of the monarch, will be released today.
And in the sport this morning, well, it was confirmed last night that England's last 16 tie will be against Slovakia, who we've never lost to, by the way. Oh dear, I shouldn't say that. 5 p.m. anyway on Sunday. In cricket, England are in the semi-final of the T20 World Cup today. They're playing against India. But if it rains all day, which is forecast, it means India win. And the Tour de France starts this weekend in Italy. It all makes sense, all the sport today. The voice of cycling, Phil Liggett, will join us live from Rimini.
Wet and unusually windy for the time of year across Scotland and Northern Ireland today. Further south, well, many places will see some sunshine, but we are saying goodbye to the hot weather across East Anglia and the southeast. Join me later for a full forecast.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Just pulling up some thoughts from you this morning. Have you?
My screen's gone blank.
Oh, it's just typical, isn't it? Did we do?
I've got one.
Oh, go on.
Bob the bodybuilder.
Oh, right.
Yes. Says the state pension should always remain exempt from tax. And Susan Dorset says tax has been paid over a lifetime to receive pensions. Leave pensions alone, it's not your money, she says.
The problem you've got with this, though, is that the Conservatives are calling it a tax raid on pensions, which it isn't, in that it's all to do with the thresholds. And because the Conservative government froze the thresholds, it just means that as the state pension increases because of the triple lock, about £1,000, £1,500 will fall into that. Now, the Conservatives have said, well, the triple lock plus will exempt it, which is not a bad idea, but it is solving a problem that they created. That's the criticism that the government's getting over a lot of this. It's you're coming up with these solutions to issues which you've brought in. So, but I mean, quite right. I mean, you shouldn't pay tax on a state pension. I mean, it's small enough.
Well, that's what most viewers are saying on gbnews.com/you'll say. So do keep them coming in. Also, lots of you concerned about the fact we've switched sides. I know that's
really?
confusing. It's confusing for us as well. It's because the names need to match up. So when our names come up on this little bit here, now it says Ellie Costello under me and Stephen Dixon under you, which is very fitting.
It's just a bit more sensible.
Yes.
That way, I quite like it. I like a change.
I'm getting used to being on this side.
I like that.
Am I on stage right? Yes, I am. Stage right. Screen right.
Oh, camera right, yes.
That's
camera
what I mean.
right.
Yeah, we're not on the stage, are we? Yes,
no,
the camera.
It's very confusing.
It is. Anyway.
If you want to be confused a bit more, let's talk politics, should we? And who's going to be the next Prime Minister? Because Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer clashed last night over illegal immigration. It was the final TV debate just a week before we decide who's going to form the next government.
Well, a new poll has predicted that the Conservatives are set to lose most of their seats, with fewer seats than the Liberal Democrats, meaning they would become the official opposition.
It also found Reform UK, who are actually, in terms of percentages, were polling higher than both the Conservatives and the Lib Dems, would end up with around 18 seats. So it's a small number compared to the share of the vote they'd get, but actually it's a lot more than has been predicted so far.
Well, with all of that in mind, let's take a look back at what the politicians have got up to in the past 24 hours.
Work is, of course, about pay and being able to pay your own way and, support your family. But it is also about dignity and respect. And my dad worked in a factory all his life. He was a tool maker. And having a secure job for him was really important to his respect and integrity.
Well, do you know where these people come from?
No, he's not answering the question.
Do you know where
you
they come from? Iran,
you can see.
Syria, Afghanistan. So when Keir Starmer says he's going to return people, is he going to sit down? Are you going to sit down with the Iranian Ayatollahs? Are you going to try and do a deal with the Taliban? It's completely nonsensical what you are saying.
I really think we need to review the whole of gambling regulation with respect to politics. And I really hope after the election that's what the new government and Parliament gets behind.
In your lifetime, do you want to see Britain back in the EU?
Listen, because you've got a lot of work to do to even be able to contemplate something like that,
You wouldn't even get that far.
All right, let's get the thoughts of our political correspondent, Katherine Forster, who I think is on a... Oh, no, you're not on the bus. Are you getting on a bus in a minute? It's a Labour battle bus today for you, isn't it?
Yes, good morning, Stephen and Ellie. I'm here in Nottingham the morning after the debate. Of course, I will be getting on the bus immediately after I finish this live, going off for a few trips. It's a bit of a magical mystery tour. You're not told too much in advance. But the debate last night, I think we could see why the Prime Minister's team had been very, very keen for him to have lots of head-to-head debates with Sir Keir Starmer. Of course, this was only the second and also the last, but he really did come out fighting, didn't he? OK, they are 20 points behind in the polls. One of his senior advisors said to me before, look, we're not stupid. You can see that we've changed the language. They're very much talking about don't give Labour a blank check. A new phrase last night from the Prime Minister, don't surrender to Labour. I think the strongest moment for the Prime Minister and the most difficult for Sir Keir Starmer was on the issue of the Channel crossings because, of course, Rishi Sunak saying, well, I've got a plan, Rwanda, etc., I'll be sending people off. But Sir Keir Starmer has said he's going to scrap that from the beginning and rely on cracking down on people smugglers and processing the claims quicker. And when the Prime Minister said, but, a lot of these people coming from Syria or Afghanistan, how you're not going to be able to send them back, what you're going to do, you're going to do a deal with the Taliban. There was laughter. I think that was difficult for Starmer. Also quite tricky for Starmer, the issue of women's rights. The Prime Minister was clear in terms of single-sex spaces that means biological sex. And J.K. Rowling, who wrote a quite excoriating letter about Labour having, she says, abandoned women at the weekend, was on Twitter last night basically saying that She's voted Labour all her life. She's given them huge amounts of money in the past, but for the first time, she will not be voting for them. So those two issues are difficult, but a snap poll from YouGov put it as a dead heat. Basically, 50% of people thought Sir Keir Starmer had won. 50% of people thought Rishi Sunak had won. Now, of course, that will suit Sir Keir Starmer very well. All he needs is for nothing to go wrong, because it looks like he's heading into a massive majority. The Prime Minister needed a big game-changing moment. I don't think that came last night.
But he was on the attack, wasn't he, last night, Starmer? Sunak. Many people would say that it's just too little, too late. This is what we should have seen a little bit earlier on in the campaign. And this poll out this morning, Katherine, predicting a 250-seat Labour majority, and the Lib Dems would become the official opposition. I mean, that's extraordinary, isn't it?
It is absolutely extraordinary, and I think you're right, Ellie. We could have done to have seen this Rishi Sunak several weeks ago, because there's only just over a week. A lot of people have already sent off their postal votes. This electoral calculus poll has the Conservatives down on just 60 seats. It really would be almost an extinction-level event for them. And the Liberal Democrats on 71. So we could be waking up next Friday morning to find that Sir Ed Davey, who of course has been going around the country and doing all these fun stunts, also with a very serious message on social care, I would say, and water, could be the leader of the opposition, the Conservatives relegated to third place. Now, that particular poll has Labour with a 250-seat majority and Reform with 18 seats. Worth saying, though, that in a lot of polls since Nigel Farage's comments on Vladimir Putin, the Reform share of vote does appear to have dipped slightly following that.
OK, Katherine Forster, thank you very much indeed, live for us in Nottingham. And very strange to see her not on a bus.
Yeah, well, she will be very shortly, as she said. She never misses a bus.
Yes, resume her normal service in just a moment.
Let's talk to former Labour MP Sean Simon, who's here in the studio. Good to see you this morning. Look, the problem Keir Starmer has, I would say, if he's trying to win voters over in the last TV debate, as he did last night, he actually isn't really answering questions, not being very clear on immigration, not being very clear on tax, not being very clear on gender issues. So people have got questions, he's not answering them.
I think he's pretty clear. I think people have got a pretty good idea what Keir Starmer stands for and where Labour's coming from, and I think that's one of the reasons, as we've just heard, they are so far ahead in the polls. Let's not kid ourselves, and I don't think they're kidding themselves. This election fundamentally is about the Tories. This isn't the everybody loves the Labour Party and Keir Starmer's the best thing since sliced bread election. This is the everybody in the country is sick of the Tories and we're going to vote for them. We're going to vote to get rid of them. That's what this election's about.
But there's just no detail, is there, from Sir Keir Starmer? I mean, even if you look at illegal immigration, for example, that came up last night, he says, well, people here are going to be processed and some may be sent back to their home countries. But how? There's not an answer to how.
I mean, there's as much detail as you ever get from opposition parties in elections. The truth is, the real truth, which I don't think Keir Starmer really got to last night, is that nobody knows what to do with these failed illegal asylum seekers. The Tory Rwanda plan is only attempting to send 1% of them back. What are the Tories going to do with the other 99%?
Well, they would say it would be a deterrent.
Well, but that's still not sending them back, isn't it? What does the deterrent do to the 99% who are already here? What Keir Starmer's saying is, fundamentally, we've got to stop them coming in. And whatever Labour says, what we know is, it's gone through the roof under the Tories. Nobody could do it worse than these clowns.
I tell you what, if all this proves to be true, right, all the polls, all I said, and we won't know for a week and a day yet, but Keir Starmer's going to have a huge problem, isn't he? Because he's going to walk into number 10 and it's going to hit him like a sledgehammer. Actually, the scale of what he's got to do, you're going to have a new Prime Minister with zero honeymoon period.
I think that is absolutely right. But I don't think these polls, the quite extreme ones like the most recent ones, I don't think they are right. It looks like Labour will win, but I think it'll be a much more even thing than some of the polls give us the impression. But I do think that the Labour's room for manoeuvre, their ability to do anything, is hugely restricted. The economy's in a terrible state. The public services are in a terrible state. They've said they're not going to raise taxes. They said they're not going to increase borrowing.
Do you think, on the tax issue, I mean, they can't do it without raising tax. I mean, look, according to the IFS, no party can do it without raising taxes. They're going to have to, aren't they?
I think the two strands are they're going to have to be very conservative in what they tell people that they can do, and I think that's why you see a manifesto that is relatively limited in scale, because they know that they're not going to be able to, like the Blair government came in with a relatively good economic inheritance, and they rapidly changed the country. The Starmer government is going to find it very difficult to do that. But all governments raise tax. I mean, this Tory government, has raised tax to the highest level that we've seen for 70 years, and they don't even believe in tax.
The poll out this morning forecast Labour victory would be larger than Tony Blair's landslide in 1997. But there's not the excitement that there was in 1997, is there? There's not this groundswell of enthusiasm for Sir Keir Starmer. So you're not going to have the patience of the public, are you?
I think that's right, and I think they understand that. It's absolutely right. If you go out knocking doors, people are not... There isn't that... I think it's partly because over those 20-odd years, I think general disillusion with politics as a whole has grown. I think there's less of a sense now than there's ever been before that politics and politicians can be the answer and make things better. And so, no, I think what's motivating people in this election is just getting this government out because they're so useless.
OK, Sean Simon, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. You'll have a view on that, no doubt. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Yeah, do keep your views coming in to us this morning. Now, let's update you on the latest on the search for the teenager Jay Slater, who went missing in Tenerife 11 days ago.
Yeah, and the latest twist in this, the mayor of a town close to where he disappeared claims that some locals saw the 19-year-old watching the Euros.
Our GB News reporter Charlie Peters joins us now. Good to see you this morning, Charlie. And tell us about these new reported sightings.
So Emilio Jose Navarro, he's the mayor of this local town, Santiago del Teide, which is about 3.5 miles away from the rural de Teno Park, where Jay Slater was last seen and heard from last Monday, the 17th of June. And he's saying that his officers are looking through images reportedly of Jay Slater, captured 10 hours after his last sighting. Now, his phone revealed his location about 8:50 last Monday, 10 days ago, and he was last heard on the phone to his friend Lucy at 8:15 that morning. But it's only now, 10 days later, that we're hearing about this sighting, reportedly of him watching the Euros. Now, police officers are in the town not only reviewing these CCTV images captured by a private company, but they're also speaking to people who reported the sighting themselves. It wasn't just CCTV that picked this up. I have to say, it seems rather unlikely that it could be him.
It sounds a bit Chinese whispers, doesn't it, unfortunately?
There has been so much social media sleuthing in this case, and I think that's what's probably disturbing quite a lot of the investigators on the island, the Spanish police, the civil guard from Tenerife, who are looking into this case very intensely, is that they're not only competing with the facts on the ground, but also memes and misinformation being chucked in from social media, TikTok and Facebook, absolutely wild, in overdrive with their own theories on this situation. We've now got a case now where there's a third-party investigator and several amateur sleuths appearing on the island to try and, they say, support their own leads. But we've heard reports last night that the drug underworld could be a possible line of inquiry. The Spanish police have said nothing about that. And there are splashes in the papers today about all the various competing, I'd say, conspiracy theories online about this poor missing apprentice bricklayer, a 19-year-old who's gone missing on his first holiday without his parents. I think the focus from the Spanish police is very obviously still searching that area, the Damascus area of northwest Tenerife. They're looking there because that's where he was last seen and heard from.
But the tragic reality of this is that if the Spanish police are right in what they're doing, it's got to be recovery now rather than rescue, hasn't it?
If their theory is right and if their current line of inquiry is correct, it's highly unlikely that Jay Slater is still alive in the northwest of Tenerife after so much time of not being heard from. And that area is not like, cast your minds back a month to the disappearance and the search for Dr. Michael Mosley and Simi. Now, that was an arid, very rocky, extremely hot island just off the coast of Turkey. But by contrast, in the Canary Islands, where they're looking now for Jay Slater, this is an extremely mountainous area, not clear terrain. It's not as barren as it was on Simi, and so they're looking through ravines and rocky cliff faces and extremely challenging terrain, and that's why they've got helicopters, sniffer dogs, drones running through all these locations and looking through new areas they hadn't searched last week because there is just so much area to get through.
Perhaps that's why the search is taking so long. Charlie Peters, thank you very much for keeping us updated. And of course, we will keep you updated on the search for Jay Slater on GB News.
OK, time for the weather. Here's Alex.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Unseasonably wet and windy weather hitting parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. Further south, things are turning cooler. Still pretty warm across East Anglia and the southeast, but far from warm in the northwest. Gusty, blustery conditions for Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Quite a bit of rain coming in here as well. Grey start over the Midlands and southern England, but it will brighten up here as we go through the day. A few showers possible for Wales and developing across northern England also. Temperature-wise, well, still up into the mid-20s across East Anglia and the southeast before things turn fresher. Elsewhere, temperatures are down compared to yesterday's, and certainly it feels a lot cooler with this very wet and windy weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Not a day to be in the Highlands of Scotland. Quite blustery conditions, but largely dry across the far northeast of Scotland. Showers coming into southern Scotland, wet and windy also for Northern Ireland. Again, not great conditions here. Gusty winds and rain on and off throughout the afternoon. A few showers will get into northwest England, the odd one for Wales, but much of the south of England, the Midlands and East Anglia will be dry once that cloud from that weather front, which is introducing the cooler air, clears away. It stays pretty blustery and wet through the evening and overnight across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. A bit of a breeze blowing further south and a much more comfortable night as well. Much less humid tonight compared to the night just gone, as temperatures dip down to 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. So a fresher feel for Friday and generally a fine day across the south. Still pretty gusty across Scotland, still plenty more showers to come across the north and the west. A few showers for Northern Ireland, but generally a drier day here, and the winds will be easing tomorrow too. Breezy across northern England with a few showers zipping through, but the bulk of England and Wales looking dry. There'll be some sunny spells instead of the heat. Temperatures much closer to average for the time of year. Bye for now.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, it's the final week to see how you could win our great summer giveaway with £15,000 worth of cash and a whole host of treats as well.
Yeah, time really is running out, though, because the lines close at 5 p.m. tomorrow, so don't miss out. Here are the details you need.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. If you're thinking about entering, just enter. And you never expect to win, but I did.
You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, best of luck to you on that one. Still to come, we're going to be heading to Glastonbury. Stephanie Tecci is there, pitching her tent as we speak. We'll talk to her in a couple of minutes.
She's glamping. There's no tent.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
He fell into a coma. His family, of course, absolutely distraught. Because Turkey is outside the European Union, it therefore doesn't count under the Global Health Insurance Card scheme, which means that he is liable for these costs, and the family say that he's being held there for until they pay at least half the £41,000 that is owed.
One of our viewers here saying their premium, because they have health conditions, can be as much as £1,000. But if they're going to go overseas to, as you say, a non-EU country, they still should take it. That's the message here, isn't it? Don't take the risk.
Absolutely. Now, if you do have lots of pre-existing medical conditions, or you're an older person, my lovely mother-in-law is going to be 95 this week. She's still travelling, but only within Europe, and only because the cost of insurance is going to be many times the cost of the trip. And she just thinks, OK, well, I'll get emergency medical treatment free if I'm in the European Union and I've got that GHIC card. But beyond that, absolutely not. It's not worth the risk.
You have to have your card, do you, Simon, to get treatment within the EU? You should just apply for that online.
You should certainly apply for it online. Don't go to any of the scam sites that want to charge you money for it, because it's a free card. But actually, if you haven't, it's absolutely not a huge problem. Yes, you have to go through a bit of rigmarole, or at least your family do, to sort it out. But in general, if you go to a public hospital, they will treat you first and ask questions later in the European Union. And if you're a British resident, you should get it for free. Even if you forgot to get the GHIC card, they will sort it out eventually.
Britain's election channel. GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it? He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex, and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex, and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
You'll be delighted to know I found the Tric Award. We lost it.
You lost it.
Well, I did, actually. It was going around the office that I was the last person to have it, and I was appalled, wasn't I, that my name was being thrown into the mix.
It's true,
but it is actually true. I was the last person to have the Tric Award. And what happened was I wanted the directors and the producers to enjoy the glory as well. So I put it in the gallery yesterday after yesterday's show, and I said, you enjoy this now. And then I forgot that I left it there, and then it went missing.
Right. I noticed they didn't say anything this morning. We're all searching for it. No one in the gallery said a word.
But anyway, it's here. So this is last year's award, this year's award, and don't they look good in a pair? Lovely.
There you go.
Thank you very much, everyone that voted for us. It's the best feeling, isn't it?
It is. And, of course, a key part of the team is our Stephanie Tecci.
Certainly is.
Yeah, and she is down at Glastonbury for us. enjoyed. I just want to know, because when we were going into the break, Ellie said you glamp. You don't glamp, do you? You've got your own little leopard print tent.
There's no way you camp, Stephanie. Come on.
Ellie knows me too well, Stephen. Of course I'm glamping. I do have my leopard print tent, but it's not like a normal tent. There's no way I could do a tent for 5 days. I've got everything in my lovely glamping tent. Yes, of course, I brought the leopard print tent back to Glastonbury this year, but obviously you get to meet lots of friends each year. And first off, can I say congratulations to the best breakfast team in the country? Well done, guys.
Oh,
thank you.
Well, you are a very special part of this team, Stephanie, so it's a congratulations to you as well. So what's the atmosphere like down there? Is the excitement building? 'Cause music starts today, right?
No, it starts on Friday, Ellie, so it very much is the calm before the musical storm. So we've got headliners including Dua Lipa, Coldplay and SZA. Last year we had this big furore because Glastonbury had an all-male lineup including Elton John. So this year, for the first time in the festival's history, they have 2 female performances, so it's going to be quite big on the Pyramid stage on Friday once the music starts here. But there's a whole bunch of other acts, including Shania Twain. She'll be having the legendary slot on Sunday, and one person I'm really looking forward to seeing is Cyndi Lauper. I literally can't wait to have some fun with her.
Did you get some big names? I mean, some classically big names.
They do, but I think a lot of fans this year were disappointed with the lineup at the beginning because Coldplay, this will be their 5th time playing at Glastonbury. So people are trying to say that sometimes it's the same old acts who are coming on. But once you're actually here, Stephen, there's so much to do over the 5 days. It's not just about the music. It is a performing arts festival. So there's so many installations. So if the music's too much, you can always move over to the arty side. And there's even wellness things such as a yoga retreat where people start their mornings with yoga. So there's a lot to do here for different age ranges. And obviously with Glastonbury, there's always a bit of politics. We were due to have Angela Rayner here, but unfortunately the Labour Party have been told they cannot come to Glastonbury this weekend because they need to focus on the elections.
Well, that does make sense, doesn't it? You probably couldn't be seen to be living it up in a field. Well, is it campaigning? I'm not sure it is, really.
What about in terms of the weather, Steph? I mean, it's glorious at the minute, but I don't know what's going to happen over the weekend. Have you packed your wellies?
I have got my wellies. I've got some new wellies in my suitcase. But we've been told that actually the rain is going to hold off for the weekend. Right at the moment, it looks a bit gloomy, but yesterday was amazing. Here on the farm, it almost reached 28 degrees. So I'm thinking over the weekend, they said it is not going to be no rain and it's going to be having a lot of sunny spells. So I don't think we'll need our wellies as much this weekend.
Oh, it is going to be fabulous. Have the best time, Stephanie.
Thank you.
I want to see all your outfits on Instagram, please.
Oh, don't worry, they're coming. They're coming, Ellie.
Good. Do you have electricity in your glamping tent?
No, I don't. This is like, it's like it really is first world problems at the moment. I am using a solar lamp and I've got my selfie light as well, my video ring light, so that does the trick.
Of course you do. I expect nothing less. Stephanie Tecci, enjoy the festival. You're a better woman than me. You'd be good with no electricity. You'd be fine. You quite like the outdoors.
I'd be all right. Yeah, I would, but I'd like fire. I'm a bit of a pyro, so I would want to light a fire, which isn't very good when you're surrounded by tents.
That's very true. Maybe don't try that.
No, don't try that, no. I love a fire.
Yeah, it's the man thing. It's a caveman instinct.
Oh, is it? Is that what it is?
Men love fire. That's why they love barbecues. They just like to stand around a pit of fire.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Get the fire pit going.
Yeah.
Love it.
And then the women make the salads. It's the foraging. Honestly, that's what it is. Biology.
All right, you make the salad. I'll light the fire.
You can light the fire.
OK, you've got a deal. Okay. Right, we've got all the sport heading away. Paul Coyte is going to be here in just a minute, and he's going to be talking to the man who has been the voice of cycling for such a long time here in the UK, Phil Liggett. I adore him. He's going to be on next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Argyll and Bute, the A85 is closed each way between Oban and Connell after an accident. In West Dunbartonshire, the A814 is closed along Glasgow Road in Dumbarton after a fire. In East Yorkshire, the A63 is blocked eastbound by an accident between Welton and North Ferriby, causing queues. On the M62 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed eastbound. Someone's broken down between junctions 10 and 11. And the M6 to Birchwood with queues towards there. The M42 from Staffordshire into Warwickshire is closed southbound from junction 10 at Tamworth to 9 at Curdworth. Repairs after a lorry caught fire yesterday afternoon. There are long delays as you divert. The M4 in Monmouthshire is partly blocked eastbound by an accident just after junction 23A for the Make of Services causing queues. On the M49 in Bristol, there's a lane closed southbound after a vehicle caught fire between the M4 and M5 causing queues. On the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down between junctions 5 and 4 towards the M3.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Tric Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tormini.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Time for the sport this morning. Paul Coit is here. Good morning.
Hello. Are we confident about England or not?
No.
Well...
No.
Ellie, be honest with me.
Well, I put on a bet.
Oh, did you? What, Slovakia?
Oh, that's
well, that we'd win, and then now I'm feeling less.
Listen, don't worry. You know, it's all opened up very nicely. Yes, it's not good at the moment, but I think there's a chance that... I've suddenly got this quiet confidence. I know, but I lied before, but this time I really mean it.
This time you mean it.
Slovakia in Gelsenkirchen on Friday is who England are going to play. So we've got so many sporting events on. The Euros, England play in the T20 semi-finals today, and against India, which is going to be tricky. We've got the Olympics coming up, but you know what starts on Saturday, don't you?
Oh, it's the Tour.
The Tour de France begins.
It's in Italy, isn't it?
Well, it starts in Italy. It's the 111th Tour de France, and a man who's seen... He's probably not going to be upset when I say this, but probably nearly half of them, I'd say, is the voice of cycling, who's in Rimini at the moment, the legendary Phil Liggett. Morning, Phil.
You're nearly right, Paul. I've seen 52 of the 111 tours.
52. So, yes, so just shy. So we're just about on the money. Let me ask you this. With all the sporting events going on, is this the toughest sporting spectacular that there is? Because it is so tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I think it is. It's over the last 20 years, it has got a greater exposure to the world of cycling, the world of sport, including the United States, and all of the. About 30, maybe 35 years ago, the French had a big desire for what they call the mondialisation of the Tour de France, make it worldwide. They wanted the foreign cyclists like Greg LeMond, the first Americans to ride here and win the Tour back in '86. He was a fantastic bike rider, and of course he went on to win the Tour 3 times, despite being shot by his brother-in-law and spending 18 months getting a load of bullets out of his back. He came back and he won the tour on his return. He was an amazing character. In fact, yesterday was his birthday. But the man who's in charge now is the Dane, Jonas Vingegaard.
Jonas Vingegaard.
And he's going to go in as the big favourite, even though he has not pinned the race number on since April, when he had a very, very serious crash. But he's loved by the Danes. He is their biggest ever sporting hero. Despite their great football players, he is their #1 sportsman. Pictures there, we saw him saluting the crowd last year when some 50,000 people welcomed him back to Copenhagen as winner of the tour.
What, he's even bigger than Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, are you saying right now, Phil? Surely it's not. Only just. But I tell you what I do want to ask you, because you mentioned the crash that he had, and it was it's a horrendous crash. And I know that all top cyclists, they've probably broken every bone in their body. Does it ever affect them when they come back afterwards? I know we'll talk about Mark Cavendish in just a second, but surely mentally it must have some sort of effect, doesn't it?
Well, cyclists are a resilient bunch of riders. They're not the $1 million man, you're right. They've broken a lot of bones, but they get bandaged up and they do come back. Whereas a footballer goes in agony when he's had about a half-inch connection with his toe on the other side. These guys will crash at 60 kilometres an hour or more and get up, look where the cuts are, see they're not serious, and jump back on his bike and race back up to the peloton. They are a tough bunch of riders. Accidents happen in cycling, especially in the Tour de France, because it is the biggest race in the world. 45 riders in this year's tour are riding it for the first time. And of course, it's the ambition of their lives to take part in the Tour de France and to win it. Well, there aren't many people who've done that.
I had the honour of spending a couple of hours with Mark Cavendish a couple of years ago, and we did a documentary, and I was talking to him, and he said, when I asked about the Tour de France, and it was that question as a non-cyclist, and Stephen, you love your cycling as well, and I said, is it something you enjoy? And he said, I absolutely hate every minute of it, but I love it. But it keeps pulling me back. Now, he's going for that record, isn't he? Now, what are the chances of this? Because he shares the record, doesn't he, with Eddie Merckx, 34 stage wins. So last year, there was an accident, and now he's back again. What's the chance he's going to win that at that stage that he wants probably more than anything else to break the record?
Well, I'm close to Mark. I love him. I've commented on every one of his 34-stage victories in the Tour de France. One with Cameron Diaz sitting on my knee in Bordeaux. That was a very special occasion. It's another story.
Hold on, what? Cameron Diaz?
It's very difficult to commentate with Cameron Diaz sitting on your knee and shouting, "Go, Mark, go, Mark," and I'm going, shh.
I know, I had a similar experience, but I think I was watching football at the time.
However, I love Mark. My answer is, deep down, I don't think he can do it, but I do know Mark. And his heart will be in the right place, his aggression will be in the right place. But the race this year has some incredibly fast finishers. And Mark is nearly 40 years old. But if the heart rules, he'll get his 35th win. And I think the whole peloton will congratulate him if he does. But there's no presence in cycling, so he won't be given a step. He's got to win.
I'm one of those that's not a cyclist, but I love cycling. Yeah. And I love watching the Tour de France. So the peloton is the group, and I've got to know and got to understand how these things work. So there's an amazing documentary that was on Netflix. If you can tell us, though, what's the difference between a sprinter and someone that's going for the grand classification, which is to win the whole thing altogether? Because some think, well, hold on, if Mark Cavendish is that good, why does he not win the whole race?
Because you can't climb mountains, as simple as that. Your body shape dictates how you go. You get somebody like the hot favourite here this year is Tadej Pogacar, who's just won the Tour of Italy. He's going for the double, which is Italy and France in the same year. Hasn't been done since 1988. He's a live little guy. They probably weigh, I only know it in foreign language, about 45 kilos in weight, 46 kilos. So it's a couple of bags of potatoes, and he climbs up a mountain like a rabbit. Mark can't do that.
That's what makes you the best in the business there, Phil. Finally, it's tough for the riders. I mentioned how tough it is. It's got to be tough for you, though, isn't it? Because do you go from stage to stage, travelling around? It's not that easy.
Well, no, I'm sat in Rimini here. I'm looking out at the beautiful Adriatic Ocean. To my left, just past Marino, is Florence, and that's where they start in 2 days' time. They will race here, but all our television crew is here. because we cover from the minute they start riding out of Florence, live television, until they get here. And it's a 127-mile ride. Very hilly. They say it's the hardest opening day, excuse me, in the Tour de France ever. And that's saying something since it started back in 1983. But yes, it's a big logistic for us all. As soon as the race crosses the line, I'm in a car. I'll drive another 127 miles to my hotel. I'll be up next morning doing it all again for 3 weeks.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can I ask you, Phil, about I think the unsung heroes, because they hardly get any coverage these days, the masseurs on all of this, because the cyclists would fall apart, wouldn't they, if they weren't getting those look pretty painful massages every night?
Absolutely right. The two most hard-working groups on any Tour de France, or any big bike race for that matter, are the masseurs, and there are probably 3 on an 8-man team, so they've got a lot of bodies to massage, at least till 1 or 2 drop out later on. And the mechanics who put their bikes together after the atrocious conditions, and they work through the night. They are the hardest working, for sure. The riders fully appreciate what they do. Once they've fallen off, the first object is get them to the finishing line and make sure they're able to ride next day. And once they ride next day, you've got to get on that table at night and they work on your body, where the cuts are, where the sores are, where the legs ache. And they'll be on that table for maybe 1.5 hours before they go for their dinner. It's not just the massage, though. It's the talk that goes on between the masseur and the rider to get his mind back into the mental state to go through all the pain again and do it another day.
See, the masseurs work so hard, they need masseurs.
Yeah.
So it's the masseurs. Phil, it's always an honour and a pleasure. Have a great Tour de France. Number 52 for you. Doesn't end in Paris. I know it ends in Nice because of the Olympics, but enjoy every minute and we'll always enjoy listening to you, and thanks a lot for your time.
Lovely. I'm off now, Paul, to get my massage.
OK, right.
Good man.
I knew you would be. There. Phil Liggett. What a legend.
He's a legend. I mean, I spent my childhood listening to Phil Liggett every summer.
Yeah.
My dad and my brother, massive cyclists.
Yeah.
So every summer it was on. So it's a voice I know from my earliest memories.
See, like I say, I'm not a cyclist, but I love cycling things. I love the whole idea of it. But the thing is, the other one that I love is that when you get people play football and they wear football shirts, and you see cyclists, everybody sees them, they've got all the gear on, you can't wear the yellow jersey. You can't be a cyclist, isn't that? I think you told me that. It's an unwritten rule. You can't wear the yellow jersey.
No.
So I'd like to go out on my rally chopper and just go around with the yellow.
King of the Mountains, you might just about
Yeah,
get
that's
away
what I'll
with.
have. It's the King of the Mountains. That's the white one. White one with the red spots.
Yeah.
And you know where that got its thing from? The reason it's that? It's the same as the yellow jersey, which was sponsored by a yellow paper, sporting paper, back at the turn of the century. And then the white shirt with the red spots for the King of the Mountains, it was sponsored by a chocolate company, and that was the wrapper on the chocolate bar. So they sponsored it. So that's how they did it. So
and it's just stayed.
And it's just stayed, and that's the reason it is like it is.
Every day is a school day.
Isn't it just?
Isn't it?
Paul, thank you very much indeed.
Would I be the only person in the Tour de France with a bell?
Yeah, probably.
And a basket.
And a basket. No, I
That's what
would.
you need.
That'd be me.
Yeah, somewhere to put your baguette.
There you go.
A snack.
And by the way, there's no jobs as masseurs going. I know what you're trying.
Do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers with Dr. Renee Hondekamp and Emma Wolf. That's next.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign. And thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War, restoration of this really precious memorial.
The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother, and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved one.
The People's Channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting.
I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Tric Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hooray! Oh, that's very nice.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone who voted.
Thanks, Patrick, for voicing that. You did an excellent job.
Oh, was that Patrick?
It was Patrick.
Well spotted.
Hey, right, let's crack on, because we've finally got a bit of time to talk to GP Dr Renee Honderkamp and the broadcaster and author Emma Wolfe, taking us through the papers. Emma, let's crack on with the Times, should we?
Yeah.
Using mobiles at the wheel, convictions have doubled.
Yeah, they have, and I think this is a good thing. I think that when you are out and about, you see a lot, if you're a cyclist like me, you see a lot of drivers still using their mobile phones at the wheel. I see
4
it
times
all the
more
time.
likely to crash.
You are, and I see it all the time. I see it every day, and it's extremely frightening. Anyway, last year, over 13,000 drivers were convicted in court. This is when they choose to go to court rather than paying a penalty at the roadside.
Yeah.
So there are all sorts of ways you can kind of get around it, as compared to sort of about 7,000 the year before. So this is a good thing. Ministers have tightened the law. Well, you now can't do photos, videos, you can't be scrolling along, you can't be looking through audio lists, you can't be playing games, which people shouldn't be doing anyway.
Stop.
Really, really scary. I mean, I think this is a start. This is a good thing. The police have cracked down, and they are apparently doing more just out and about on the roads. I actually think that we need to get rid of screens. I don't think we should have phones and screens. Even your kind of audio maps, that kind of stuff in cars. I think that any screen that you are glancing at while you're meant to be driving is a distraction. I know what you'll say, oh, but what about maps? People need them for maps. They don't. In the old days, people drove their cars. If you need to stop and get out your... I don't think we should have, even if it's a navigation device, because every time you take your eye off the wheel, off the road, you are endangering other...
Well, I think built-in screens are fine.
They're not fine.
No, they are.
My map actually comes up where the speedometer is in the middle there. So
that's handy.
It's there.
Why is that safe? Why do you think that is safe, that you are glancing at a screen, at a map? I don't care where it is.
No.
Why is that
that's
safe?
no different to looking at the speedo.
I
See how
agree.
fast you're going. No, that's fine.
But also, what about cyclists on their phones? Shouldn't they be prosecuted?
We're not going to do whataboutery. You're not going to start attacking cyclists on this. I cycle around London with a vulnerable toddler on the back.
On your phone?
It is terrifying. Of course I don't. Do you think I would take my phone out and look at my phone? It is insane when cyclists do that, and I often say to them, for goodness sake, I just say, for goodness sake. But when I'm alongside a lorry or a big van and I see someone looking at their phone or picking up their phone or checking their notifications, it is terrifying. You have no idea. None of you cycle. You don't know how vulnerable you feel when a car is moving kind of that way. In fact,
you're very brave taking your toddler on a cycle, to be honest with you.
All I mean is you're in charge of a death-creating machine. And actually, what the AA is saying, sorry, and then I'll shut up, what the AA is saying is, you had your go on the trans issue. The AA is saying, do you know what? Make the glove box your phone box. Good. Put the phone away.
I like that. That's a good phrase, yeah. Renee, talking about phones, let's talk about mums. Who spend hours talking to their friends and family on the phone could be hampering their children's language development.
So this is research that shows that mums that spend their time on the phone rather than talking to or with their baby show a 16% reduction in toddlers' speech abilities. And what they think happens is that these toddlers realise that they don't get a response when mum's on the phone, so they stop trying. They actually shut themselves up when mum is on the phone. I wish my son had known that. He actually just used to go bonkers when I was on the phone. But, I mean, I think this talks into so many things. If you put kids in front of screens, if you put mum on a phone, you are not talking to a child. And if you don't talk to a child, they're not going to maximise their verbality. They're not going to learn new words. They're not going to learn how to put them together. They're not going to learn how to have discourse with people.
Or eye contact or anything. It's heartbreaking. We've been talking about this a lot online. Honestly, I go to the nursery in the mornings and there's a mum who turns up. She wears those massive ear noise-cancelling Dr. Dre kind of headphones, you know, Beats headphones, blocking out the entire world. She's got a baby daughter in front of her, and she's not looking at the baby, she's not interacting with her or cooing at her or just chattering about the world, what you do when you're out and about with a baby. And the baby is just sat there basically being ignored and looking at a mummy who's cancelling the whole world and doesn't want to hear from anyone or anything. And it's just such a crucial stage of a baby's development.
It's absolute common sense. Like, I'd chatter onto the dog.
Yeah, because you're interacting with them and they feel that they're there, that they exist.
And it's how they learn.
I know.
Of course, it's so important, isn't it? Dr. Renee Honderkamp and Emma Wolf, thank you so much for today. Sorry it's been brief, but really good to have you with us. Thank you.
Quality, not quantity.
Right.
Exactly.
Let's have a look at the weather for you with Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Unseasonably wet and windy weather hitting parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. Further south, things are turning cooler. Still pretty warm across East Anglia and the southeast, but far from warm in the northwest. Gusty, blustery conditions for Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Quite a bit of rain coming in here as well. Grey start over the Midlands and southern England, but it will brighten up here as we go through the day. A few showers possible for Wales and developing across northern England also. Temperature-wise, well, still up into the mid-20s across East Anglia and the southeast before things turn fresher. Elsewhere, temperatures are down compared to yesterday's, and certainly it feels a lot cooler with this very wet and windy weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Not a day to be in the Highlands of Scotland. Quite blustery conditions, but largely dry across the far northeast of Scotland. Showers coming into southern Scotland, wet and windy also for Northern Ireland. Again, not great conditions here. Gusty winds and rain on and off throughout the afternoon. A few showers will get into northwest England, the odd one for Wales, but much of the south of England, the Midlands and East Anglia will be dry once that cloud from that weather front, which is introducing the cooler air, clears away. It stays pretty blustery and wet through the evening and overnight across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. A bit of a breeze blowing further south and a much more comfortable night as well. Much less humid tonight compared to the night just gone, as temperatures dip down to 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. So a fresher feel for Friday and generally a fine day across the south. Still pretty gusty across Scotland, still plenty more showers to come across the north and the west. A few showers for Northern Ireland, but generally a drier day here, and the winds will be easing tomorrow too. Breezy across northern England with a few showers zipping through, but the bulk of England and Wales looking dry. There'll be some sunny spells instead of the heat. Temperatures much closer to average for the time of year. Bye for now.
that warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Argyll and Bute, the A85 is closed each way between Oban and Connell after an accident. In West Dunbartonshire, the A814 is closed along Glasgow Road in Dumbarton after a fire. On the M6 from Merseyside into Cheshire, there's a lane closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 22 and 21A from Newton Willows to the M62, causing delays. The M42 from Staffordshire into Warwickshire is closed southbound from junction 10 at Tamworth to 9 at Curdworth for repairs after a lorry fire yesterday with long delays as you divert. The M4 in Monmouthshire is partly blocked eastbound by an accident just after junction 23A for the Mega Services, with queues from just after junction 24 for the Caldra. On the M49 near Bristol, there's a lane closed southbound where a vehicle caught fire between the M4 and M5, causing queues. And on the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down between junctions 5 and 4 from Southampton Airport to the M3, causing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. 1 week until the polls open.
Yes, last night, Sunak and Starmer went head-to-head in the final election leaders' debate.
The Prime Minister telling the public not to surrender Britain's borders to Starmer.
While the Labour leader hit out at the Tories' delay in processing asylum claims.
Also this morning, Tenerife locals say they've spotted the missing teen Jay Slater watching the Euros.
Hospital hell. A 5-day strike commences today by junior doctors in England over pay.
And the annual report, which declares the wealth of the monarch, will be released today.
Wet and unusually windy for the time of year across Scotland and Northern Ireland today. Further south, well, many places will see some sunshine, but we are saying goodbye to the hot weather across East Anglia and the southeast. Join me later for a full forecast.
Just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
You just caught us a little bit unawares at the top of the show there, because I was being accused of being harsh.
He's bullying me. I'm being bullied by my co-presenter.
Is it what
this
it is?
morning? Yes.
You could probably have me by HR.
I definitely could. Do we have an HR department? I don't know. But yes, I was just being bullied by my co-presenter. You know those reminders that you get on Facebook of What do you call it? Old pictures, yes. And I had a picture from 2015 and Stephen didn't recognise me in it.
But you look absolutely... You don't look anything like you.
You asked me how much weight I'd lost. So you're calling me fat?
No.
Past me, you were calling fat.
In the picture, you look lovely. It's just... It doesn't look... I wouldn't have reckoned... If you'd said, who do you think that is, I couldn't have told you. I could not have told you.
Oh, dear. Anyway,
You look like you've lost an awful lot of weight.
Anyway, so I've been humbled this morning. Thank you, Stephen Dixon.
You look like a lovely girl, then.
Thank you. No, we won't be showing this photo publicly. From being asked in our ears to share it, we won't be doing that.
It's just I can't believe how much you've changed.
Yes. Thank you for that. And I was just saying, I thought I looked great on that trip, so...
Well, you do look great on that trip. You just don't look like...
You look like me.
Oh, Ellie Costello, we've come to know and love.
No, yes. Anyway, that's what we were giggling about, because we know you like to be involved in all of that as well. Do keep getting involved throughout the show today on any of the stories that we're talking about today. gbnews.com/you'll say. You've pulled yourself together now.
Yeah, it's just... There you go. Right, on to politics. Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer clashed over illegal immigration in last night's final TV debate with, of course, just a week to go until we decide who's going to form the next government.
Well, a new poll has predicted that Conservatives are set to lose most of their seats, with fewer seats than the Liberal Democrats, meaning they would become the official opposition.
It also found Reform UK would win about 18 seats, which is a lot more than has been predicted so far.
Well, with all of that in mind, let's take a look back at what the politicians got up to in the past 24 hours.
Work is, of course, about pay and being able to pay your own way and, support your family. But it is also about dignity and respect. And my dad worked in a factory all his life. He was a tool maker. And having a secure job for him was really important to his respect and integrity.
Well, do you know where these people come from?
No, he's not answering the question.
Do you know where
you
they come from? Iran,
you can see.
Syria, Afghanistan. So when Keir Starmer says he's going to return people, is he going to sit down? Are you going to sit down with the Iranian Ayatollahs? Are you going to try and do a deal with the Taliban? It's completely nonsensical what you are saying.
I really think we need to review the whole of gambling regulation with respect to politics. And I really hope after the election that's what the new government and Parliament gets behind.
In your lifetime, do you want to see Britain back in the EU?
Listen, because you've got a lot of work to do to even be able to contemplate something like that,
You wouldn't even go that far.
All right, let's get the thoughts of our political correspondent, Katherine Forster, who has got on the bus, the Labour battle bus.
Yes.
Raring to go. I mean, what's the mood amongst people on the bus this morning, Katherine?
Well, everybody is a little bit weary because, of course, we had a long day yesterday and there was the debate last night. But, a week today, the polls will be open. GB News viewers and people across the country will be making their decision now. So Keir Starmer last night in the debate was saying, if you want change, you have to vote for it. And judging by the latest MRP poll that came out, Labour are on course potentially for a whopping 250-seat majority. Conservatives on these projections down to 60. The Liberal Democrats could be, next Friday, the official opposition. Sir Ed Davey projected to get 71 seats. Of course, no one has voted yet. The Conservatives are game-changing moment now. The debate last night, one of his top advisors afterwards was absolutely thrilled to bits with how he felt the Prime Minister had done. Certainly the Prime Minister was very punchy. He came out fighting, behind in the polls, but saying, do not surrender. Labour have no plan. They're going to put your taxes up, etc., etc. I think the most difficult moments for Sir Keir Starmer were, first of all, on the small boats, because he said we're going to process people quicker, we're going to crack down on the gangs. But Rishi Sunak was saying, well, you deal with the Taliban. You showed that clip, it was laughed at. So very punchy from the Prime Minister. Also, Sir Keir Starmer women's rights have been a big issue for, well, 51% of the population. Rishi Sunak sought to draw a dividing line on that as well, saying that absolutely Conservatives will protect single-sex spaces. That means biological sex. Sir Keir Starmer also mentioning the trans community. J.K. Rowling on X afterwards is having none of it. She said for the first time in her life she will not be voting Labour. But I think, to me, the of the audience who stood up and said to the Prime Minister, you were okay as Chancellor, you've been mediocre as Prime Minister, and to Keir Starmer that he thinks that senior people in the Labour Party are pulling his strings, and said, is this really, you two, the best we can do for our great nation? And I think he speaks for many, many people around the country not very happy with any of the choices, to be honest.
OK, Katherine Forster, thank you very much indeed on the Labour battle bus for us this morning. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating, that gentleman, I can't remember his name now, Ray, can't remember, who, or was it Robert? Robert, I think it was, who, get there in the end, who put that quote, because he was so forceful.
Yeah.
And so blunt. I mean, to say to the Prime Minister, you know, I think you did quite a good job as Chancellor, but as Prime Minister, I think you've been mediocre. And then
he was forthright, wasn't he?
And then something similar to Keir Starmer. Are you two the best we can do for this country? I mean, heck, it's a tough thing to say. Maybe it just needed saying. Because there's not that enthusiasm out there. Unless you're a Reform voter, where there is this sort of passion for what they do. It's a minority of the population, 18% coming through on the latest MRP poll. But nevertheless, you want enthusiasm for a party, don't you?
Yeah.
In '97 for Labour and Tony Blair back then.
But Labour even admit they don't have that excitement, as we just heard from Sean Simon, who was on the programme a little bit earlier on. Anyway, do keep your views coming in.
Right, let's get the very latest for you now on the search for the missing teenager, Jay Slater. It's 11 days since he went missing in Tenerife.
Well, the mayor of a town close to where Jay disappeared claims that some locals saw the 19-year-old watching the Euros.
Let's talk to our reporter, Charlie Peters, who's here in the studio. So what do we know at this stage? Because obviously the Garda Civil are continuing their search in the sort of missing zone, if you like, whereas with them we're getting these sort of strange reports about him being safe and well in a village somewhere.
Yeah, so the mountain rescue teams are still looking in the Rural de Teno area in the northwest of Tenerife, which is that mountainous, very rocky, cliffed area in the northwest of the island. But at the same time, we've heard yesterday from the mayor of a town 3.5 miles south of that area, saying that there was a possible sighting of Jay Slater, the 19-year-old, 10 hours after his phone last recorded his location inside the Marcas area of the island. Now, we understand that the CCTV of that image and the other sightings around it are being reviewed by the Garda Civil, but also by the local town and the police who are there taking a look at it. But it's important to stress that this was recorded 10 hours after he was last heard from and seen on his location on his mobile phone. So it's highly unlikely that it is him, because if it was, then you'd hear from him more regularly than just the 10 hours after. Now, since then, and in the last hour, we've actually heard from Debbie Duncan, the mother of Jay Slater, who's posted an update to their GoFundMe page. Now, they've raised over £36,000, and she stressed that they're working with GoFundMe to safely withdraw some funds, which they can then use to support the mountain rescue teams on the island. She said that they're utterly broken, but very united, and they're not losing hope and believe they will find Jay and be reunited. She's also said that some of those funds will be used to extend their stay on the island, and I've gotten in touch with GoFundMe to work out how they approve that work and make sure that the funds go to the right people. The mountain rescue teams, do you fund the Spanish police? Do they accept donations, or is this funding some of the amateur investigators who've flown out there to support.
Yeah. Well, if it's anything like over here, Mice and Rescue may be volunteers. So perhaps that's something to be done. I mean, on this other issue, this sighting, it does, and I know police are sort of giving it a little bit of attention, but if it turns out it was him, then it begs the question, well, what on earth happened to him within a community, if you like?
Right, and a third-party investigator who's flown out there to support the family did say in a press conference yesterday that one of the lines of inquiry on the island for his team is the so-called drug underworld on Tenerife, making references to some of the criminality on the island, the other potential avenues of investigation. There have also been questions raised about who Jay Slater spent that Sunday night with on the 16th. Now, he reportedly left the Energy Festival on Sunday night and then drove to a rental property 36 miles north of where he was staying and where the festival was. Why were those two men that he was staying with renting so far away in such a rural and isolated area on the island? Those men have now flown back to Britain. There was some concern that they hadn't been interviewed by the Spanish police. We know after that the police in Lancaster offered their support to the Spanish authorities. That was rejected because they say they have all the resources that they require. And amidst all of this back and forth and misunderstanding, some criticism of the Spanish police for not having a translator on the island at the time, amid all of that, there has also been a significant amount of social media sleuthing, these memes and misinformation getting stuck into the rescue effort. Many people stuck on their armchairs doing their own analysis of the situation through TikTok and Facebook, sharing some quite outlandish perspectives, I'd say. Some of these theories that have attracted a lot of attention don't really bear much resemblance to the situation on the ground. And there is concern on the island by people involved in the rescue that could be a distraction. The Spanish police aren't saying much on this, and I think what's revealing is that they are still searching the Rural de Teno area, that isolated area northwest of the island where Jay Slater was last seen and heard from.
OK. Charlie, for now, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Hugely worrying.
Day 11. Yeah, it is hugely worrying.
Imagine what his parents are going through.
Yeah, but of course, we'll bring you any updates that we have on GB News.
Yeah, we certainly will. Now, let's change tone quite considerably. Just to remind you that it's our summer giveaway. It's the last chance, really, to get your hands on 15 grand in cash and a load of treats.
Yes, but lines do close at 5 p.m. tomorrow, so make sure you don't miss out. Here are all the details that you need.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British Giveaway. If you're thinking about entering, just enter. And you never expect to win, but I did.
You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, Andrew and Bev will be here to let us know what they've got coming up on Britain's Newsroom. That's next.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Tric Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
History lecturers at the University of Liverpool have been advised to problematise whiteness and heterosexuality in their seminars. They are saying that you should be guilty if you're white and heterosexual, not using the long words they use, but that's kind of what they're saying.
But do you know what? History in this country is concerned with more and has been lived by more white people and more heterosexuals, right? And that's the history. I'll tell you something else, Dawn. This is Russell Group University material here. This is Liverpool. It's a really good university. The thing that really got me going apart from this, and I thought it was an AI generation of words input into a system to come up with from something. It's ridiculous. The main issue I have is the verb problematise. I've never heard of that before. So they should be prioritising grammar. Let's get first principles back in there firstly.
It's just promoting anti-racism.
It's not, Amy.
It is, wait. It's just bringing the marginalised voices into the discussion. So,
what they're saying is look at British history through the optic of...
all perspectives. So let's look at it from the perspective of a queer person growing up. Let's look at it from the perspective of somebody from...
But that's not the majority.
When I actually looked at the evidence, it's all about unpacking bias. And you have to admit there has been a white bias in history.
No, there hasn't, because the facts...
From a white perspective...
Amy, the facts are, in history, most people in this country are white and heterosexual.
Of course, but then there's still...
So that's the history.
...voices that deserve to be brought into the discussion as much as the dominant... Like, that's all decolonising the curriculum is hearing all sides of the argument. Surely we at GB News love. We celebrate that. That's what we do.
We do, but we're not telling anybody it's bad to be white or it's bad to be...
Exactly.
That is not what...
Amy, it is. It is.
Amy.
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
We're nearly done, I have to say, but Britain's Newsroom will be here at 9:30, and Andrew Pearce and Beverly Turner are here.
Beverly, I'm in trouble.
Beverly, you are in trouble, Beverly. I was with you on Tuesday afternoon. You're in so much trouble.
I like a party.
Very
Stephen,
badly behaved. How are you both?
Yeah, we're good. Top of the world.
I haven't congratulated you on your fine award.
Thank you very much. These two are going back in my bag.
Well, I wanted to encourage Ellie yesterday to do a lap of honour with the trophy around the studio, but she wouldn't do it.
No. There's still time.
As we're obviously not going to win the football. Let's do a lap
hey, now, you never know. You never know, apparently, because the way with the draw's gone, we should be all right.
Right.
I think what struck me from the Tric Awards, obviously I was off yesterday, was just
No.
No.
Oh, sorry, no, what?
I was waiting for a skip to be delivered at home from the glamour of the day before to ripping out the bathroom yesterday. Was just the fact that GB News is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And a few years ago, the atmosphere in that room towards us was not entirely friendly, but it was a lot less hostile this year.
It was a lot less hostile this year, but I'll tell you... Oh, I know, I'm not going to be critical.
Go on.
I don't know if I should.
Go on.
Well,
you've
pretty
much said it now.
The way it works is that, I mean, it was Roman Kemp this year introducing this, and here to present this award is someone nice comes on, Ainsley Harriott or whatever, and they dish out the award. When it comes to the news presenter, which obviously they knew Nigel had won, and the news programme, which obviously knew we'd done, there's no guest presenter.
I hadn't thought about that.
And it was the same last year.
Why is that, do you think?
Because I don't think the celebrities want to hand over an award to GB News.
Well, that's outrageous. Wow.
Because why is it that it's suddenly like, oh, actually, no, and I'm just going to do this one myself?
Wow, that is a really good point. I hadn't noticed that. And also, I would just urge everyone at home to just consider what that means about how much of capital E establishment media, what they think about our viewers and listeners.
Well, this is it.
They don't trust your judgment, and I think you've got the best judgment because we have the best programmes, including this morning's, when we're going to have on the guy that asked the question last night in the debate, aren't we?
The best question of the debate was from Robert Blackstock.
Yeah.
The best you've got, is the best the country have got, you two. So he's coming on this morning to talk about,
is he?
to talk about that.
Oh, well done, you two. That's great.
That is really good.
Yeah, and I think because I think
Robert.
he speaks up for many people watching and listening to this programme who think, really?
Yeah.
Is that it?
It's all we get on your
Dole,
view, your say.
Starmer and Sunak, who I thought performed probably the best he's done last night. It was too late.
Too little, too late, isn't it?
I did think they missed a bit of a trick, though, Sunak and Starmer. They could have turned around and said, do you think it's bad here? Have you seen what's going on in America?
Right. But we've also got Jeff Hoon, former Labour Cabinet Minister. And I'm fascinated to talk about him, about the atmosphere in '97 when they knew, after 18 years of Tory rule, what it was going to be like to be going into government for the first time. 'Cause Labour are going to be going into government for the first time in 14 years. And we're going to talk to Kwasi Kwarteng, who, of course, was in that short-lived, disastrous Liz Truss government as Chancellor.
And if you like doggies, we've got an excellent doggy story on the show today. This is about a charity that is encouraging people to take on dogs to train them to be guide dogs.
Oh, I do that.
Yeah,
well, you are exactly what they're looking for.
Dogs coming in, and of course Beverly Turner's smiling here. She hates dogs.
Beverly!
All of them.
How can you not like dogs?
I don't hate
And the dog is going to sit on Beverly's lap.
What I don't get with, and I think it's phenomenal, the people who help train. But the problem is you have to give them away.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to. Now, that's what I couldn't do.
Well, it's like fostering.
Yeah.
And you have
And
to
that's
keep
the point.
watching to work out how they think they're getting round that. Because that, you've just identified, is one of the reasons why this person's coming on.
Yeah.
OK.
I think that's really hard.
So are you up for this, Stephen?
No.
He's got enough at home, haven't
Got
you?
enough at home with a dog
Timmy
and
and
a cat.
Rex.
You've got a dog and a cat?
Yeah.
Right.
I've got space.
The cat will be the boss.
Yeah, well, the dog's only a year old, but it's...
Cats are always the boss. I have 2 cats. They're the boss.
I've got 2 guinea pigs. They were lockdown presents. I'm just waiting for them to die.
Your children may see that. Or
They
hear
say
that.
things like that. I mean, I'm not actually going to kill them. Despite what
Really?
people think about me and that blooming
Do you
cow
remember
that
the
got
cow?
knocked
Do you
over.
remember
I know, and
the
you're going to say
cow?
that.
She would have driven in the third time
No,
to finish
what?
it off.
You didn't
Yes,
say
she
that
would.
there. You didn't say that on air.
No, I didn't.
She thought the police officer was completely right to try and kill this cat.
As did the Farmers' Union, I remind you, ultimately.
One farmer.
As was the Farmers' Union in the end. They said that he was the right to do that in a busy area with roads.
Beverly said he didn't drive it hard enough.
I did not say that.
No
I did not say that. And to be
compassion.
clear, I don't want to kill the guinea pigs. They're just a massive hassle of cleaning them out and looking after them. That's a constant battle. That's their job.
You have a heart of stone.
I don't have a heart of stone. But genuinely, when it comes to dogs, it's a fear. I've had it from being little. It's a fear.
Well, we're going to put the dog on
I like
your lap.
babies.
It'll be part of your therapy with a dog.
Aversion therapy with me and a dog on the show this morning.
It'd be lovely, lovely moment.
Watch me tremble.
We think it's house trained.
Well, let's hope so.
Let's hope not.
You've got a lovely dress on today, Bev. You wouldn't want it ruined.
Thank you. I'm still trying to coordinate with our new set. I'm still seeing what works. I'm sure our viewers will let me know.
I had a nice grey jacket on the other day. I was told I can't wear it again.
It wasn't blending very well, was it, Andrew?
No.
But we need to communicate. You two liaise.
Yeah, well,
as you can see, we don't.
That's why.
I'm not sure about that tie, Steve.
We're out of time.
We're out of time. That's it from us. They're next. Thank you.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Unseasonably wet and windy weather hitting parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. Further south, things are turning cooler. Still pretty warm across East Anglia and the southeast, but far from warm in the northwest. Gusty, blustery conditions for Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Quite a bit of rain coming in here as well. Grey start over the Midlands and southern England, but it will brighten up here as we go through the day. A few showers possible for Wales and developing across northern England also. Temperature-wise, well, still up into the mid-20s across East Anglia and the southeast before things turn fresher. Elsewhere, temperatures are down compared to yesterday's, and certainly it feels a lot cooler with this very wet and windy weather across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Not a day to be in the Highlands of Scotland. Quite blustery conditions, but largely dry across the far northeast of Scotland. Showers coming into southern Scotland, wet and windy also for Northern Ireland. Again, not great conditions here. Gusty winds and rain on and off throughout the afternoon. A few showers will get into northwest England, the odd one for Wales, but much of the south of England, the Midlands and East Anglia will be dry once that cloud from that weather front, which is introducing the cooler air, clears away. It stays pretty blustery and wet through the evening and overnight across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. Bit of a breeze blowing further south and a much more comfortable night as well. Much less humid tonight compared to the night just gone, as temperatures dip down to 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. So a fresher feel for Friday, and generally a fine day across the south. Still pretty gusty across Scotland, still plenty more showers to come across the north and the west. A few showers for Northern Ireland, but generally a drier day here, and the winds will be easing tomorrow too. Breezy across northern England with a few showers zipping through, but the bulk of England and Wales looking dry. There'll be some sunny spells instead of the heat. Temperatures much closer to average for the time of year. Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Argyll and Bute, the A85 is closed in both directions between Oban and Dunbeg after an accident in the early hours of this morning. In West Dumbartonshire, the A814 is closed in both directions, while on Glasgow Road off the A82 in Dumbarton after a fire overnight. The M42 from Staffordshire into Warwickshire is closed southbound from junction 10, the A5 Tamworth turn, to junction 9, the Curdworth and Coleshill turn off for emergency repairs to damage caused when a lorry caught fire yesterday afternoon. There are long delays as you divert. In Swansea, the A48 is closed in both directions east of the Llansamlet traffic lights for emergency repairs to a burst water main. And in Hampshire, the A27 is closed westbound off junction 5 of the A3M at Havant after an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Wiltshire police have arrested 2 people after they sprayed orange paint on Stonehenge.
Well, Just Stop Oil have shared a video saying it's to get the incoming government to sign up to a legally binding treaty to phase out fossil fuels by 2030. Of course, Stonehenge famously associated with oil, gas. I think the 5,000-year-old Neolithic Britons were prolific users of the internal combustion engine, and they drilled for lots of oil, so it makes perfect sense, of course.
Yes, we're going to be joined by Jill Taylor, a spokesperson from Just Stop Oil. Jill, thank you very much indeed. What on earth is this all about? This is just criminal activity under the guise of some kind of activism.
No, that's not. That paint will be washed off really easily. So it's not long-lasting damage at all. Unlike the damage that is being done now by the fossil fuel industry and just keeping burning fossil fuels, putting more CO2 into the atmosphere. You're right, the Neolithic people were not prolific users of fossil fuels. They did not cause the kind of damage that we're causing now. That's all been within since the Industrial Revolution in the 150 years.
So because it's
when the damage has been done.
So because this stuff can be washed off, ergo there's no issue here. Well, Stonehenge aren't particularly happy about this. They've come out on their social media page and they say Stonehenge is protected by the Ancient Monuments Act and it is a criminal offence to damage the stones. There are also multiple rare lichen species growing on the stones that are also protected. So this isn't good for nature, is it?
I think you're getting things so out of perspective here. What isn't good for nature is the damage we're doing now, and what's not good for nature globally is not good for you, it's not good for me, and it's not good for the people watching this programme.
The People's Channel.
Morning, 9:30 on Thursday the 27th of June, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Good morning. So Sunak came out swinging. The Prime Minister and Labour leader had their final feisty TV debate last night, but audience member Robert Blackstock stole the show with this question.
Are you two really the best we've got to be the next Prime Minister of our great country?
Great question. And those junior doctors, they're at